Before we start, the name is at the top of the screen. A girl in a red hoodie peeks from a slightly open door. She has only one thing to say. Words and thoughts were never something she considered powerful. Now she knows better, and she wants to warn those who may be reborn. Lies and thoughts moved through her without resistance. Blank eyes like a drained sky, wild hair escaping the red hood. She gazes into nothingness and warns us not to die with hatred in our hearts. We may end up like her. She checks the soil, which is completely absorbed by her potion. It was her last one, she just wanted the lid off. She cannot seem to control her magic. The magic she can use is burst, an explosion of an unknown element. She looks at the crops nearby, they grew again. She uses her magic to destroy them, but she knows it will grow just back soon. She can only use two types of magic. She is a useless witch who lives in the woods. On the continent of Grecias, in a corner of the kingdom of Becquerel, there is a Ludfalla forest. This is where she spends her days living quietly. In this world, half of the population can use magic and half cannot. That doesn't put one group above the other. Everyone takes pride in their own abilities. She believes she belongs to the half capable of using magic, but for her it feels more like a sentence. The same thought returns again and again. This is her punishment for cursing the world in a past life. Solitude is familiar to her. In that former life, she was a shut-in. She would wake for school and choose not to go, quietly wishing it would disappear. Sometimes she imagined the building gone. Sometimes the world itself. She never truly meant it. They were only careless words, whispered whenever she wanted to be nowhere and with no one. In her past life, she liked to think that she had started trying, at least toward the very end. On the day everything ended, she had finally forced herself to leave the house and head to school. Halfway there, a bus came rushing down the road, and she noticed it a moment too late as it struck Senna Shirai, 18 years old, erasing her second chance before it could even begin. When she opened her eyes again, she found herself face to face with an angel whose presence felt strangely careless, as if even this meeting had not been planned properly. The angel explained that her death was the result of an unexpected accident, nothing more. Senna hesitantly asked if this had happened because she went outside but still failed to reach school. The angel dismissed the thought and instead offered her rebirth, sweetening the offer with the promise of a special power. Leaning in close, the angel stared at her with frozen, unblinking eyes that made her skin crawl, then suddenly smiled as if struck by inspiration and said she already knew what power to give her, telling Senna to live strongly this time. Before Senna could ask anything else, a dark black hole opened beneath her and she was shoved into it without ceremony. Her next breath was a scream, her next sensation the warmth of unfamiliar arms as a woman held her close as she cried in despair, and once again she was given the name Senna. Yet even in this new world, nothing went the way she hoped. The first time she went into town, everything fell apart as her magic ran wild, leaving a wrecked carriage, shattered ground, and stunned faces staring at her in fear. Wrapped tightly in her mother's embrace, Senna could only wonder why the only magic she could use was the kind that exploded and destroyed. In the end, her mother told her there was no helping it and that she would have to live quietly from now on. Hearing that she was destined to be a shut-in all over again felt crueler than the accident that killed her. Why did it have to be this way, even in a second life? And so, 18 years passed with her hiding away, just as before. On the morning of her 18th birthday, she sat by the window, slowly eating her 18th slice of jam and butter cake. Restlessness stirred in her chest as she noticed the old peddler had not come by yet, unusually late today. She was 18 again. Had anything changed? Had she made progress? She thought this time she would. She is a shut-in, but she does go outside. Just within a small bubble. In her past life, she went to the convenience store often. She can go retrieve the bounty of the forest and do work in the field and the house. She does well living alone. In this life there is no electricity, so daylight is precious. Fire is precious too. She has to be efficient. The magic in this world can be conveniently bottled as magic craft. There are springs of flame. What non-magic users use magic craft for, magic users can easily accomplish with household magic. But for her, who can only use explode and destroy magic, she has to clean her dishes and cook up the mountain vegetables. Once the flames are gone, she does her work with the mana crystals Giftia that she woke up early to pick. She uses her magic and they explode. These BOM bombs for blasting are an original product of hers. There is little demand for them, but they are priced for breaking up rocks. Shrub away for weeding. Yes, She has her own knack for naming things. She hopes he comes to get these soon. She has too many piling up. Senna freezes when the doorbell rings, then rushes to open it, thinking the old peddler has finally arrived. What she sees instead makes her stop dead. A young man lies sprawled on the ground, completely out cold. His eyes flutter open, and each breath he takes is a struggle. He manages to ask if she is a witch, gasping for air. Senna blinks, flustered. Perhaps the peddler sent someone different today, an apprentice or a substitute. The man struggles to his feet and looks at her with confusion, asking why, if she truly is a witch, she would need magic craft at all. She hurriedly explains that there are only a few common uses for it, but her words trail off as he steps too close, invading her space and making her face burn with embarrassment. He exhales tiredly and mutters that it does not matter, that she clearly needs it for something, before staggering forward and thrusting a bag into her hands, telling her it is her usual delivery. The moment he lets go, his strength gives out again and he collapses, fainting at her feet for the second time. She stares down at him, unease twisting in her chest, wondering if he might be a magic user himself. Magic craft is incredibly useful, after all, but notoriously difficult to handle. Any attempt to channel magic into it directly causes interference and risks breaking it entirely. Wind magic cannot be used to reinforce the body while carrying it, nor can earth magic be used to manipulate gravity to make transport easier, which is why people usually rely on carts to move it. Because of that, magic craft is rarely suitable for travelers, making his condition all the more suspicious. She stands there, torn about what to do. Part of her wants to step outside, to seek help, but the image of the truck from her past life flashes violently across her mind, and terror locks her in place. She cannot do it. But she forces herself to remember that there are people who help strangers, that kindness exists, and she repeats over and over that it is fine, that she is safe. In this world, there are no cars running red lights. If she leaves her closed world, no one will call her strange, no one will laugh, forget her, or pretend she does not exist. And if she reaches out her hand now, he is right there. Later, she has managed to bring him inside and lay him on her bed, carefully using healing magic that leaves a soft glow on his face as a faint circle forms and fades, restoring color to his skin. Once his breathing steadies, he shifts comfortably, completely at ease, while she stands there in disbelief, realizing he has claimed her bed and her beloved pillow without hesitation. With a quiet sigh, she fetches a blanket for herself. She is terribly picky about sleep, about comfort and routine, but tonight this will have to do. Curling up on the floor, she settles in. The next morning, he slowly opens his eyes and blinks, completely thrown by the unfamiliar view around him. The room is messy, stuff scattered everywhere. Without thinking, he uses his magic, and objects lift into the air, floating smoothly back to where they belong. Once the room looks normal again, his gaze drifts upward, landing on Senna, curled up in the little corner upstairs. He realizes she took his bed. He focuses his magic on her, and she lifts gently into the air, floating right into his arms. As he holds her, it clicks, she really is a witch. Carefully, he puts her back on the bed and casts a soft spell to give her sweet dreams for a while. Later, Senna wakes up feeling like she just had the happiest, most nostalgic dream. Then a familiar scent drifts to her nose, and she sits up, heart racing, calling out for her mom. He turns, frowning, clearly annoyed, and asks who she is calling mom. Senna freezes, completely caught off guard, realizing just how strange her second life as an 18-year-old shut-in has become. After she was reborn the morning after her second 18th birthday, when she woke up, breakfast was waiting for her. Senna looks at him in shock, her mind still foggy from sleep. She must have slept incredibly soundly. He glances at her casually, telling her to hurry up and eat before the food gets cold. She thanks him but hesitates, reminding him he's her guest. A guy staying over feels strange, though he seems nice. He waves off her protests and insists she eat. She must have slept enough and it's time to pull herself together, her hair is sticking out in every direction. She thinks he's as blunt as a mom. It's been 4 years since anyone made a proper meal for her, and she can't help staring at the breakfast in front of her. It looks amazing. She picks up her chopsticks and begins eating quickly, while he finishes a short pre-meal prayer and mutters that her prayer was awfully brief. Then he picks up his chopsticks, eyes narrowing as he struggles. Senna notices immediately and tells him he doesn't have to use them if it's too hard. He freezes for a moment, a flicker of offense crossing his face before he declares if she can use them obviously he can too. He manages to pick up a piece, bringing it to his mouth, and finally says it's delicious. He admits he doubted himself while following the recipe he found. Senna smiles, explaining that it was really hard to assemble all the ingredients. She's glad he chose that dish. He stares at her blankly, saying that the recipe had notes all over it. Then he asks about the miso, wondering if it's a sauce made from grain. Senna replies from grain miso and soy sauce can be made. Her mother and she had thought it up together. Since this is a completely different world, obviously there are no Japanese restaurants or even miso or soy sauce. But she wanted Mr. Soup so badly that her mom decided to do something about it. She relied on her memory of the taste as they fumble around to make something familiar. Her mom couldn't use magic, but she really knew her way around magic craft. As a result, though, people thought she was strange. Then she broke that wagon and things only became worse. Keith looks at her and says that explains the reputation, so that's why everyone calls her a witch. Quite a title for someone who can barely use magic. Senna frowns, hesitating. Maybe she can use it, but why is she spilling her heart to a stranger? Keith notices her hesitating and says he has no intention of telling anyone. She breathes out softly, admitting it has been so long since anyone has cooked for her. She apologizes quietly, worried she's saying too much. Keith shakes his head, telling her she has nothing to apologize for. Then he asks for her real name, suggesting she must have something beyond witch. Senna whispers that her name is Senna. Keith tilts his head and introduces himself as Keith, telling her she can call him that. She glances at him and asks his age. 16, he answers casually. She looks away, a little disappointed. She had assumed someone so self-important would be older than her. Keith catches her glance and guesses that something rude just crossed her mind. She denies it, flustered. He grumbles that if he hadn't come, she would have starved. Senna hesitates, then asks about Arnold, the peddler. She wonders if he is Keith's apprentice. Keith stiffens, clearly offended. Apprentice? That's what she thinks. He explains that while he was walking through town, Arnold had back pain, and a shop owner told him to rest. Arnold was told to forget about the witch, she could come to town herself if she was hungry. That word, witch, caught his attention, and he had offered to carry the things for Arnold. Keith hadn't known that some of the magic craft in the bag couldn't be carried using magic. Senna flushes, apologizing for the trouble, though she admits he did her a huge favor. He studies her for a moment before saying he is leaving. Senna asks if he is really going. He says no, he won't be satisfied until every last bit of that miso is used. He's heading to the forest to gather the ingredients. Senna watches, surprised. Chopsticks were one thing, but he clearly won't rest until he masters everything. She follows quickly, warning him that the effects of the old anti-beast bells are about to wear off, and that she just brought a new one. That makes him pause, he has no idea what are those. She softly says the bells are anti-beast and demonstrates by ringing them in the air. The wind twists around them with the sound. Keith watches, intrigued, asking if it is a barrier. Senna shakes her head. It isn't a barrier. The bells are meant to keep dangerous animals away, bears, wolves. Her mother had said they would protect against them. He explains that what she saw was actually a barrier and speculates that maybe her mother had kept everything from her so she could live a peaceful life. Then, with a casual motion, he summons air, and the wind sweeps all the crops into his hands as if they were nothing, and he declares they will feast tonight. She stares in shock, household magic, yet he makes it look effortless. Turning to her, he asks why, after living here her whole life, she is so slow. Pointing at a fruit on a tree, he says she can use magic right and tells her to cut it down. She takes a deep breath, telling herself she can do it, aiming carefully at where the fruit connects to the branch. In the next moment, the fruit explodes, filling the air with a burning smell. Keith stands there, mildly surprised, and asks what kind of call she just used, what element it was. Flustered, she insists she only messed up a little. He says all it would have taken was a bit of household magic to pluck it, so what was the big deal? She quickly protests that she needs magic craft because she can't use household magic. He says that makes sense, his bad. He forgot there are people like that. In the kingdom of Becquerel, most of the people who can use magic go to the capital. So even in town, there wasn't anyone she could talk to about magic. She quietly murmurs she's weird, isn't she? From the point of view of someone like him who can use magic. He watches her quietly as she screams destroy. into the forest and then remarks that's about it. He admits honestly that the more he tries to figure out her element, the less he has any clue. It doesn't seem to belong to the established 7 elements, though the capital's library should have books covering all known types of magic at least, as far as he can remember. His words are cut short when she quickly says she wants to see them. Can anyone go and look? She asks, desperate to understand her element and learn how to control this blasted magic tied to the curse of her previous life. He replies that anyone can go if they make the right preparations, but asks if she even knows what a book of magic is. She responds, isn't it full of spells divided by element? He drops his head and mutters to himself, they have a long way to go. He says when she uses magic, the way she says it is all wrong. She asks what wrong. He states magic is exercised by borrowing the power of a multitude of spirits ruled by 7 elemental dragons. He assumes she knows that. She replies yeah, she hasn't seen any spirits and asks if he has seen one. He replies that no, not at his level, since he specializes in only 2 elements. If someone can actually see the fairies, they're probably someone with exceptional magical power who calls themselves a wizard. He explains that, generally, magic users start out by trying to understand the details of their own magic by reading books of magic. There are 3 basic ways to chant, but they cannot get the spirit's attention simply by reading straight from the book. For a perfect magic chant, they must read carefully. For example, for water, the book would instruct, to hit these targets, Book of Mage 3, Passage 3, Part 2, the water passage should be read. Water flows from heaven to earth, from mountains to sea. Even so, occasionally it rises beyond the earth and penetrates the sky. He who partakes in this mystery lets loose the water just before her eyes. He summons water into the shape of a spear and directs it precisely to pierce the target he chooses, and it happens exactly as he commands. She watches in awe, unable to look away. He explains that all water element users can read the chant and get the same weak result. The spirits arrive, but they are hesitant to offer their full strength. He then demonstrates again, this time sending a powerful sphere of water with his fury, piercing the point he designates. She gasps, amazed, saying it's incredible, but he tells her calmly that this is normal. The user has to make up their own words and chant as if talking directly to the spirits. With genuine emotion, the spirits respond with stronger power. She asks so if she writes a poem, can she use it? He replies that, in her case, she will first need to learn to read the magic properly, and the elements must be arranged carefully to maintain calm and focus. He finally shows her what she is actually using and tries to summon a water arrow, but the water flashes so violently that it hits his face. She grimaces and asks if he messed up. He mutters that emotion is far more important than the precise words. They chant as if speaking to the spirits, and the more heartfelt the emotion, the stronger the response. It is extremely difficult to control, which is why it is reserved for advanced magic users. She thinks about her own explosion magic and realizes that it might operate similarly. He adds that household magic, on the other hand, has a simple ring of call to 8, flowing naturally with almost no chance of failure. She compares it to turning on a tap and wonders why she cannot make it work. He finally states, in short, that her magic is misfiring. Since she has inherent power, he believes proper training will help her control it. She straightens up, smiling, saying that she finally thinks she understands, and thanks him sincerely for teaching her. He looks flustered and glances away, muttering that he has heard similar statements countless times in classes. Then, without warning, he looks up at the pond and remarks that a fish would be perfect, he might be able to trap it between the rocks over there, and tells her to go. She freezes in place, however, because she cannot go to the other side of the river. Keith says it's like the gate in front of her house. He asks quietly if she is scared of the outside. Then, with a hint of amusement, he points out that she already went past it to help him. 2 times can't be worse than 1, he adds. He offers his hand and tells her to come. Hesitant, she takes it, and he guides her safely to the other side of the river. After that, he traps 3 fish neatly between the rocks, and both of them can't hide their smiles. Today has gone so much faster than usual, and later, over dinner, they eat the freshly caught fish. She smiles, saying she is full, but she will still eat more. He leans his face against his hand, watching her casually, though a warmth lingers in his gaze. She comments that it is so delicious and feels glad he came. He chuckles lightly and reminds her not to get a stomach ache. Then, unexpectedly, he asks if she would go on a journey with him. She freezes mid-bite, her spoon hovering in the air, and asks him to repeat himself. He clarifies that it is not a journey, more like an observation, and it will not be difficult. He explains that this is the very reason he came to the nearby town in the first place. They could go to the capital, and he would put in a word for her so she could see the books of magic for herself. Excitement floods her chest. She says she would love to see them, almost bouncing in her seat. But the thrill fades as quickly as it comes. A soft murmur escapes her lips, admitting that someone like her can hardly leave the house as it is. The same thoughts loop endlessly in her mind, trapping her in a cycle of inaction. She whispers that she cannot do anything. Keith's expression softens, but his voice remains firm. He tells her that to maintain focus entirely on one thought requires training, and she has been doing that for years. That is something even he cannot do. He suggests she think over the trip for a while, giving her space. Her cheeks burn in his presence. It feels strange, as if simply being near him is pulling her out of her comfort zone. The next morning, she wakes refreshed, probably from all the adventures yesterday. Keith is in the kitchen, handling everything so she can close her eyes a little longer. He does not wake her up or insist that she get out of bed. Then, suddenly, the outside door rattles violently, making her freeze. Panic rises in her chest. She wonders what is happening, but Keith remains unnervingly calm as multiple people barge into the house. One man looks around with a mixture of relief and irritation and sighs, noting that at least he is safe and warning that he should hope he does not give his guards the slip again. Prince. She freezes completely. Prince. Her heart skips a beat. Another man with glasses steps forward, speaking in measured tone, saying they were expecting him back and that he surely knows what time approaches. Keith nods calmly and says he knows, but if he must return, he will do so after breakfast. Then, almost casually, he gestures behind him. She is coming with him. She stands frozen, completely dumbfounded. Her mind reels. She had told him to put her spot on hold. Instead of the old man who usually brings up her things, this guy showed up. She cannot believe that Keith is really the prince. And she even called him mom. Keith watches her reaction once again and remarks dryly that she is clearly thinking something inappropriate. She snaps back that she never agreed to go with him in the first place and that Keith is far too pushy, but she feels the weight of a heavy presence looming at her side. She stiffens and hurriedly corrects herself to address him as His Highness. Keith sighs and says it is already too late for that, so she might as well just call him Keith. He then turns to the man glaring at her and admits it was his own fault for running off like that. Senna is not dangerous, he says, and there is no need to treat her like a threat. He tells him to be a little friendlier. The man introduces himself roughly, stating that he is Galt, bodyguard to the 6th Prince, Keith. Senna stiffly returns the greeting, introducing herself by name. Before the tension can grow any thicker, Yorma appears beside her, smiling easily as he tells her not to worry. Galt just has a resting bitch face. Galt does not deny it. Yorma then introduces himself properly as the commander of the knight's 1st platoon. The man with glasses steps forward next, announcing himself as the commander of the 2nd platoon and telling her to call him Tiberiu. Senna hesitates before asking if she is really supposed to go with them. Galt mutters under his breath that he wishes she wasn't, but Prince Keith's orders are final. Yorma immediately tells her to ignore him and smoothly changes the subject, tilting his head as he studies her. He comments that her hair is a funny color and casually asks if she is a witch. She blinks once, then replies flatly that no, she was born this way. The dark hair and eyes she kept from her previous life seems to be unusual in the land of Greciae. They make her seem even more like a witch. She is clutching her hood tightly over her hair when a hand suddenly closes around her wrist. Before she can react, her grip loosens and her hair spills free. The prince tells her calmly that it is nothing to be ashamed of and that she should show it proudly. He watches her with a faint smile playing on his lips, and when she looks back at him, she is visibly flustered. He then turns to Tiberiu and remarks that he thought he had more time, asking if something has changed. Tiberiu answers that it has. Because of the wind dragon incident, the investigation has been cut short, and he is required to return immediately to report to the king. Yorma adds that at the town ground garrison, the vice commander has already gathered a full platoon. Keith raises a brow and asks if that is so, then turns back to Senna and tells her that reading the magic books in the capital might have to wait. She answers honestly that of course she still wants to see them. Galt interjects sharply, reminding them that this trip is supposed to be secret and that it must be protected with his life. She hurriedly promises she will not tell anyone and adds that she does not even understand what he is talking about. Galt mutters that she is ignorant of her own country and that he cannot stand it. She fires back that she at least knows about dragons, doesn't she? Yorma says that is the real problem lately, the message spreading everywhere, the dragon-worshipping cult growing bolder. Because of them, it has become nearly impossible to get close enough to deal with the dragons at all. In this world on the border between the kingdom of Bekril and its neighboring kingdom of Zainal is Ryudo Mountain, home of the wind dragons. From its peak, the Dragon King rules for 100 years, or up to 300 years until the rule passes down to a younger dragon. When that happens, it is said that the older dragon goes crazy, attacks humans, and goes on a violent rampage. For the kingdom of Bekril and its neighboring kingdom to accept that as normal, it's no wonder they do not get along. She snaps out of her thoughts when Keith calls out to her from ahead, telling her to hurry up. Only then does she realize she has fallen behind, lost in her own head once again. She moves to follow, but freezes when the view in front of her fully sinks in. She is already near the outskirts of the town. She has not been here since that day. At the gate, she notices a magic device embedded into the structure and asks since when that has been there. Keith tells her they have been spreading throughout the country, making it easier to keep criminals out of town. He remarks that she really has not left the forest much, has she? She thinks it feels the same as when she once made it out to the train station, only for everything to look like an entirely different town. Keith explains as they walk that magic devices are a huge undertaking, but once they are set up, they can function even without magic users nearby, powered instead by magic craft, which makes them extremely convenient. At the gate, everyone lines up and enters one by one. Galt goes first. Even the guards stiffen as he passes, unease clear on their faces. Next are Yorma and Tiberiu, followed by the prince himself. When it is Senna's turn, she hesitates. Even if she goes in, they might throw her out. She is certain they all hate her. Still, she forces herself forward. The moment she steps through the entrance, the magic device begins ringing harshly, the sound sharp and alarming, instantly drawing everyone's attention. In the next second, Galt grabs his sword, his expression hard, declaring that just as he expected, a traitor is approaching the prince. They all close ranks, and the prince turns to her, asking coldly if all her self-sufficiency was a lie and if she has actually been stealing food all this time. She shakes her head and says no. Before the tension can escalate further, a guard steps forward and explains that the alarm means something else. It signals an important message meant for people who have not been seen for years. It is rarely used. Tasha from the tavern wants to see her. She recognizes the name immediately and goes still, her feet refusing to move. The very next moment, Keith grabs her hand and tells everyone they do not need to follow. He will go with her. As soon as she steps inside, she squeezes her eyes shut and blurts out the truth she has carried for years. 8 years ago, she blew up their wagon. She says she is sorry, over and over. The room falls silent. Everyone stares at her. The prince leans casually against the wall, watching her while her head spins. She is certain they think her apology comes far too late, if it can even be called late at all. Late is usually the next day, or at most within the week. This is something else entirely. Then a gentle voice speaks her name. She opens her eyes and looks up at a woman who smiles softly and says that she has finally come out and that she has grown so much. The woman tells her that her daughter is not here anymore. She got married 6 months ago. She is safe and sound, all thanks to her help back then. She stiffens and asks the woman if she is not angry with her. The woman murmurs how she could ever be angry about that. She steps closer and gently takes Senna's hand, admitting that back then she had misunderstood and even yelled at her, but she is deeply grateful for the help she gave them. She explains that Sibyl wrote in her will that no one was to disturb Senna in the forest, which is why the only way she could reach her now is through the gate. Senna stares at her in shock and asks if her mother really wrote that. The woman nods and says she also asked her to give Senna this letter whenever she came by, then carefully retrieves it. At that moment, hurried footsteps echo through the room as Arnold comes running in, saying he heard that she had come. Senna turns and stares at the old peddler in surprise. Keith glances at him and casually asks if his hip is any better. Arnold says he did not realize he was bringing Miss Senna back too. The woman gently hands the letter to her and says she is glad she was able to pass it on during her lifetime. As Senna begins to read, her mother's words unfold softly in her mind. She wonders what Senna is doing when she reads this, hoping she is not crying or in trouble. She tells her that she can talk to Tasha about anything, and Arnold too, she is not alone. She wishes she could have lived with her longer and apologizes for dying and leaving her behind. Still, the fact that Senna is reading this letter now means she has finally come into town. Her mother tells her she has done well. She knows the world is full of things that are difficult for her, and although she may have spoiled her too much, Senna possesses a truly great power, one she believes her daughter will use wisely. The world is filled with kind people who will help her. All Senna needs to do is remember where she wants to go. Senna wipes her tears and thanks everyone quietly. She then tells Arnold about his payment and mentions the homemade magic craft the knights brought for her, which are waiting outside. Arnold gently tells her not to rush herself. Tasha then speaks up, saying that since Senna is already here, could she take care of the weeds in the back? They have grown out of control because Tasha ran out of magic craft. Senna freezes. She still does not fully understand all the things she has been told about speaking to spirits, about emotion. But if doing this means she can repay everyone who has helped her, then she decides she will do it. In the backyard, Senna raises her hand and uses her magic to destroy all the weeds in one sweep. The plants vanish instantly, leaving scorched ground behind. The men stare in stunned silence, exchanging looks as they wonder what kind of magic that was supposed to be. Arnold blinks and then says, almost as an afterthought, that there is also a large stone blocking the waterway. When they arrive there, the stone looks firmly lodged in place. Yorma offers to help immediately, but Arnold waves him off, saying there is no need to trouble the knights with it, the townspeople can handle something like that. The word townspeople echoes in Senna's mind. She steps forward before she can stop herself. Even if her magic is unstable, even if it keeps failing, even if she is called a witch, none of that matters right now. She wants to help. She uses her magic again. The moment it activates, the air erupts. The stone explodes violently. Everyone freezes. Yorma stares at the aftermath, eyes wide, and says slowly that what she just used was not fire. And not thunder either. Tiberiu stiffens and wonders just who this girl the prince brought with him really is. Galt raises his voice and calls out that it is time to leave. The knights begin to move, and Keith steps closer to Senna, asking if she is coming. She hesitates, her feet rooted to the ground. Tasha suddenly speaks up, saying she would really like a dishwasher. Just 1 day a week, 3 hours of work, and she would provide 2 meals until Senna settles in. Senna stares at her in shock. That is good pay. Before she can even process it, Arnold adds that he would also like to take her in as an apprentice. To think he even had Prince Keith carry things for him. Senna's thoughts drift back to her mother's words, that the world is full of kind people who will help her, and that she should go where she wants to go. She looks at Keith and finally says that if he is willing to take her, she would like to try going with him. Tasha smiles warmly and tells her she can always come back whenever she wants, and that she will keep an eye on her house in the forest while she is gone. Arnold nods and starts to say that Senna is the right age and that Prince Keith should not. Keith cuts him off awkwardly, clearing his throat and saying that he will be acting as her guardian. Tasha bursts out laughing and remarks that she supposes the prince is her only option then, isn't he? If it were her, she would absolutely take the chance to travel somewhere. Senna looks at her with wide eyes. She really does want to go. The thought suddenly strikes her that this feels like skipping out on a normal family trip to run off traveling with a boyfriend. The idea makes her giggle quietly, even though she never did anything like that in her previous life. Keith pauses and asks what is so funny, then tells her to hurry up. He starts walking and she follows him. Far away, near a cliff, a man stands in silence. He feels it clearly now, the presence she has been searching for. She has finally been found. Not in Zainal, but in Becquerel. Perhaps that is because the time has come. The man lifts his head and calls out softly to Grihelm. His expression darkens as he realizes his voice no longer reaches him. The king of the dragons. Later, she stands before the kingdom of Becquerel and gazes up at the towering castle with quiet awe, completely taken aback. The streets of the capital were already impressive, but this place feels on an entirely different level. Galt approaches Prince Keith and tells him they will go directly to meet the king, then asks what should be done with her. Senna stammers she cannot possibly stay in a castle like this without doing something in return, adding that washing dishes would not be enough, right? Galt narrows his eyes and replies that she could never handle their work, since the royal attendants are all trained professionals. She falls silent, clearly flustered. Yorma suddenly laughs and teases that she would be more than welcome as a potential bride or concubine for Prince Keith. Keith sharply tells her to stop, while she hurriedly raises her hands and says she will think of something else. her face looking genuinely horrified by the idea. Keith then grins and says he brought her here as a specialist. Yorma explains that the castle is currently gathering the most educated specialists to deal with the dragon. Hearing the words best and educated, she feels overwhelmed and mutters that it sounds far beyond her. Keith reassures her that it is not, saying there is something to be gained from her presence. Tiberiu quietly adds that he is also a little curious about her. Realizing they will all be busy with the king, she thanks them for their hospitality and explains that since she has permission, she plans to read the magic books and will try not to bother them. A maid then guides her to her room, and she notices how professional and friendly the maid is, with no trace of annoyance on her face. The maid suggests she relax in the bath and tells her that fresh clothes have already been prepared. Once again, she thinks how skilled the staff here are, but the thought fades as she reminds herself that she has left home and must be prepared for the worst. She cannot rely on Keith forever. Meanwhile, Keith and the others kneel before the king, who states that if they truly had a way to defeat the dragon, they would have found it by now. Keith can only apologize to his father. An official nearby scoffs and says that even managing that is impressive, calling Prince Keith the shame of the royal family. He praises the other true-blooded princes for their achievements and declares that this task was clearly too much for the illegitimate sixth prince. Yorma bitterly whispers to Tiberiu that they assigned Keith an impossible mission from the start, then simply turned their backs to watch him fail. Tiberiu replies that he understands how she feels, but she must remain silent. The official then announces that the wind dragon Grihelm has begun its rampage, that the dragon's rule is being passed down, and that Grihelm has already destroyed 3 fortresses and 2 villages. Eventually it will make its way here. It could take 10 years before the dragon finally dies, which means the kingdom must strengthen its defenses now. The official declares that Prince Keith and his knights are to be the ones who subdue the dragon. Galt immediately speaks up, clearly shaken by the idea, and asks whether the lands of the second and third princesses are not closer to the border and Ryudo Mountain. The official replies that those princes are assigned to prepare logistical support and that troops are not deployed irrationally. The specialists gathered at the castle are already working on a plan. Keith acknowledges this calmly and says they will begin preparing for the assault and refining their strategy, then formally requests 2 weeks' time from the king. Galt blurts out in disbelief whether they are truly sending Prince Keith to his death. Keith thinks that this matter cannot be resolved through further discussion here. They will learn, prepare, and fight. He is only fulfilling his duty, and there is nowhere else for him to return to. Outside the throne room, Keith and the knights speak quietly, agreeing that the meeting itself was a waste of time. Keith then turns to the window, gazing outside. Despite his worries, his thoughts drift to her. He wonders if she has already fallen asleep and hopes she is doing well. If the meeting had ended earlier, he would have gone to check on her himself. As if reading his thoughts, Yorma casually mentions that she heard from an attendant about Senna and that it seems she has not run back home yet. Keith snaps at her not to get the wrong idea, but his voice softens as he asks if she heard anything else. Yorma thinks for a moment and says that it seems Senna did not eat much at dinner. Meanwhile, Senna sits alone in the library, closing another book with a tired sigh. This is not it either. Half a day has already passed since she began trying to reverse engineer her current style of chanting back to the most basic form, yet she cannot even find the right passages to start from. Someday, she wants to learn the poetic style as well, to sing magic instead of forcing it out. She pushes herself up from the table, her body stiff after sitting for so long, but she tells herself not to complain. The books are neatly organized by the 7 elements, and if only she could determine which one truly belongs to her. As she flips through another volume, she comes across a spell and smiles. It is the same magic Keith once showed her. She lets out a small giggle, then catches herself thinking about him. He could have at least shown his face. The thought is dismissed almost immediately. She is asking for too much. Surrounded by such luxury, she begins to feel guilty. In the end, she decides she will simply find the knowledge she needs, offer her thanks and then return home. Senna startles as the windows of the library begin to rattle. At first, she assumes it's just the wind, but when she looks up, her breath catches. Prince Keith is there, leaning slightly with a hand resting on his chin, watching her with an unexpectedly soft gaze. Her heart leaps, and a huge smile spreads across her face. She calls out to him, surprised at how genuinely happy she feels in that moment. They are in the garden now, a spread of lunch is neatly arranged before her. She blinks in astonishment, unsure if she's imagining it, and wonders aloud if this is some kind of party. Keith says Ida's just a quick break. Then, he shifts his gaze to her and remarks that the dress suits her. Her lips part slightly, and a warm flush creeps across her cheeks. The compliment catches her completely off guard. But Keith adds, saying that he doesn't like the color much, a darker shade would suit her better, and something more closely tailored would be ideal. She thinks it is actually like showing off new clothes to her mom. Keith notices her hesitation and leans forward slightly, feeding her a small bite of food. He remarks that she seemed to have lost her appetite and warns that it will be difficult to adjust to new flavors once she leaves home. Senna can't help but think he treats her like an endangered species. She focuses on the bite, chewing carefully. The taste surprises her, sweet, salty, perfectly balanced. She asks if it is a soy sauce cookie. Keith nods and explains that he made it himself, using what she had given him in the forest. Senna hadn't realized he was a prince at that time and this could go viral. Keith then says he should apologize for not helping her with her research earlier. Senna replies he has already done so much for her, and now even the soy sauce cookies. A brief silence falls. Senna fidgets, twisting her hands nervously in her lap. Her voice barely above a whisper, she asks how he is really doing. The atmosphere in the castle is rather tense, and the attendant wouldn't tell her. Her thoughts drift back to her mother in Japan. Whenever something was wrong, she would spend the day silently baking cookies, lost in thought. Keith meets her gaze and assures her that he is well enough to look after her and insists that she should not run back home. Senna freezes, caught off guard. He sees right through her, she realizes. But then she also notices that he seems happier than before. She may not have much to offer him as a specialist, but if she can bring even a little joy, perhaps that is enough. She lets herself relax slightly. She will be herself and do what she came to do. Senna is back to reading the books and tries to make sense of the passages. The library door opens, and Tiberiu steps in, asking whether she has found anything useful. She admits she hasn't found anything yet. He murmurs as he expected and says he has come to help her. Senna blinks, surprised at the notion that he would offer assistance. He explains that Prince Keith instructed him to come here if he had time. Curious, she asks if he is what people call a wizard. He confirms that if a wizard is someone who can use 2 or more elements at a level beyond household magic, then he is indeed one. He adds that he is aware she is searching for passages to read and that he has the entire library memorized, which makes him very curious about her magic since he has never encountered anything like it. Senna freezes, disbelief written across her face. She struggles to comprehend that he has memorized the whole library and thinks how much easier it would have been if he had said so earlier. He notices her hesitation and offers a suggestion. If she is stuck and wants to try a different approach, he proposes taking her into the garden, which is meant for practicing magic. The garden uses earth magic to restore itself quickly, so some damage is acceptable. Senna watches him, her gaze fixed. She would very much like to see a wizard perform magic in person. He chants a spell, and a towering fire erupts in the garden. She gasps, alarmed that he might burn everything. He responds calmly, and with a movement of his hand, droplets of water materialize and extinguish the flames almost instantly. He points out that if she cannot locate her magic in the passages, she might try working backwards from call to sing, rather than moving from reading to singing. Senna looks shocked at the suggestion, wondering whether it is even possible. Later, she sits on the ground, a stick in hand, scribbling poems into the dirt. She looks completely lost, like a child attempting something far beyond her abilities. She thinks bitterly that this world is too difficult to live in if one is bad at poetry. The prince approaches and calls out to Tiberiu, noting that he does not recall instructing him to do all this. He kneels beside Senna and observes that she is working on going backwards from call. She mumbles an apology, expressing that she is bad at this. He suggests that it might be easier to write down what she is thinking. She explains that for some people, that is difficult, because once something is spoken, it cannot be unsaid. He examines the writing and comments that the gather poem is not a bad start, though she still cannot identify the type of element her magic belongs to. He inquires if there is anything else she wishes to convey. Senna meets his gaze, bewildered by his patience, and murmurs that she is grateful because he found her in the woods. He is momentarily taken aback and flustered and then blurts that she is an idiot for trying to sing to him instead of addressing the spirits. Suddenly, the ground trembles violently beneath them. Keith looks up in shock, eyes widening. Disbelief freezes him in place. No, it cannot be, he mutters. The city is under attack, the dragon has arrived. He moves swiftly, shielding Senna with his body and barking orders to the guards to evacuate everyone immediately. The dragon's gaze falls on them both, sharp and unrelenting. At last, he has finally found her, he thinks. Keith spins toward her, urgency in his voice, explaining that multiple barriers protect the area. Once she reaches the lower levels of the royal audience chamber, she must hide. Senna asks if everyone has been on edge because of the dragon. Keith says that its rule has been passed down through generations. He had hoped to handle the matter before she discovered it. She thinks that is true. Once a dragon begins its rampage like this, it will not stop until fully exhausted. Tiberiu shouts for them to hurry inside, but the dragon draws closer. Senna freezes in place, unable to blink. Fear twists her stomach, yet somehow, the sight of the creature strikes her as beautiful. Familiar. Then, in an instant, the dragon disappears. Where once a massive beast had loomed, now stands a person. Senna freezes again, unable to comprehend what she sees. It became a person. Keith, equally stunned, demands to know if he knows her. He replies no, but his name is Rishkai. Senna doesn't understand this feeling, but for some reason she cannot look away. Rishkai says he has come for her, the caller who is to become his companion. Rishkai declares that he has come for her, the caller who is destined to become his companion. Senna, completely flabbergasted, blurts out that he has the wrong person. Companion? Caller? Her mind spins, unable to make sense of the words. Chaos erupts when Rishkai shifts back into his dragon form, ragged and terrifying, and scoops Senna up effortlessly. Keith crashes against a wall as the dragon's wing strikes him, shouting her name and attempting to use his magic, but Tiberiu yells a warning to Senna, cautioning that any attempt could put her in danger. Rishkai carries her to a secluded place where an old dragon lies, its breaths shallow and labored. He tells her that only her call can grant the creature peace. A caller's magic is the only thing that can let an old dragon sleep without pain. Senna stares at the dragon, stunned into silence. Gradually, her gaze softens. She wants to ease its suffering. Concentrating, she channels her explosion magic, the energy flowing around her and striking with controlled force. Once the magic dissipates, she turns to Rishkai, whispering that she wants to go back. But he shakes his head, crouching before her with a regal, commanding presence. He takes her hand in his and declares her his future companion, urging her to abandon the earthly world and live alongside him. After she was reborn on her second 18th birthday, she met Prince Keith. She had been a shut-in, but due to his influence her world has been expanded through a dazzling whirlwind of events. Senna gasps as she wakes, her eyes dart around the unfamiliar room. For a moment, she doesn't know where she is. Then it comes back to her. She must have fallen asleep. Yesterday, after everything that happened, the dragon had brought her here. She remembers how she questioned him endlessly. Her magic, her being a caller. What it all meant. None of it made sense to her. Out of nowhere, he had spoken of her as his companion, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. He had said what she created yesterday was a beautiful sight, one that called out to dragons. At the time, she had thought of her explosion magic, the one that could only shatter rocks and trees, and her destruction magic, which made plants wither away. Hardly something beautiful. But he had explained that humans lacked the understanding of it. When the 7 elements were combined, they formed the element of heaven. And once every few hundred years, a caller appeared, someone who could guide dragons of all 7 elements, sometimes standing beside one as a companion. That was what the record said. That was when it sank in. He had been serious when he called her his companion. He told her that the marks of a caller were black hair and black eyes. There was no mistake. She was the caller. He had murmured softly then, almost to himself, that he had finally found her. That she had finally appeared somewhere he could sense her. After that, he gestured for her to follow him, saying the guest room was nearby. She frozen again. That strange feeling returned, not fear, but something closer to nostalgia. As if part of her already knew this place. As if she had been here before, long ago. When he offered his hand and told her to watch her step, she stammered that she could manage on her own. His expression had dimmed, sadness flickering across his face, and he said he understood that her heart could not forgive him yet. Still, he asked her to at least allow him to try and show his feelings. She panicked, quickly saying she hadn't meant that as an attack. He accepted it calmly, replying that it was well then. She wondered if all dragons were like this. He didn't seem like a bad person at all. Reluctantly, she took his hand. He had been quiet for a while before speaking again, his voice low as he told her that he had yearned to walk beside the caller, to learn, to meet humans. He had waited 200 years for that wish. Then he pulled her closer, saying she could imagine his joy now that it had finally been granted. 200 years. She almost thought of him as a man, then corrected herself. No. A dragon. The king of the wind. He had been waiting all this time for her. She still couldn't believe it. She had asked then if the king's rule had been passed down. He confirmed it. He now commanded the other dragons as their new king, and if he wished to win her heart, he would shoulder that role with unwavering resolve. The transition might cause some indirect disturbances, but once the change settled, she would have nothing to fear. She remembered thinking that this must be the mental fortitude of someone who had lived over 2 centuries. Did someone like that really need a companion support? He told her to rest. Humans were fragile creatures. He wished her good night and then left through the window. What is she supposed to do now? Then a realization hits her. He said he found her where he could finally sense her. But she had lived in the forest all this time. The answer dawns on her slowly. The anti-beast bells. She had been under their protection for years. The moment she left their range when she came to the castle he sensed her presence. So her mother had lied. The bells weren't just to keep dangerous animals away. Did her mother know about all of this? If only she were here. Keith's face flashes through Senna's mind, and she groans softly. Not that mother. She shakes her head. No use hiding in her room. She won't learn anything that way. She cracks the door open and peeks outside and sees several people notice her. One of them calls her Lady Senna and says she is awake, gesturing for her to follow them to breakfast. She does, quietly wondering if these people are from the kingdom of Zainal. She is seated alone at an enormous table, laden with food. As servants move around her, she overhears them whispering. They speak of how extravagant such a meal is for someone like her, a commoner from Becquerel. They find it hard to believe that she is the caller. One of them mutters that he has been assigned as her garden servant now, and that he has no idea what Lord Rishkai is thinking. Senna notices it immediately. They are not happy she is here. Her appetite vanishes. She rises quickly and thanks them for the meal. Panic ripples through the servants, and they rush to stop her, asking if they have displeased her in any way. Just then, Rishkai enters the room, his presence immediately silencing the servants. He orders them to take their leave, and they hurriedly retreat. Turning to Senna, he apologizes, saying he had hoped they would be more cooperative, but it seems humans think differently depending on their background. Senna replies that it isn't his fault, adding softly that the food was delicious. The Dragon's Den, located here on Ryuda Mountain, it's on the border between the kingdoms of Becquerel and Zainal. The kingdom of Zainal is not very friendly. Rishkai tells her they arrived just in time for him to show her something and asks her to come with him. She follows, stopping short when she sees the room. A delicate dressing table stands near the window, fresh flowers arranged carefully beside it, soft furnishings placed with obvious intention. He watches her expectantly and, with a cheerful tone, asks what she thinks. She hesitates, unsure if he is waiting for a proper review, then says lightly that it is a lovely house. His expression brightens instantly. He tells her he is glad she likes the nest he made, explaining that he gathered many things for her. He says he wondered whether she would find shells from the ocean floor beautiful, whether shining gems would suit her, and whether necklaces of glassy obsidian might please her. The realization settles in quietly. He gathered all of this for her alone. Noticing her distant look, he asks softly if she is upset that he told her she could not go home. She answers quickly that it is not that, admitting only that he can be a little overbearing, though she is used to it. After a pause, she adds that having some warning, or time to prepare, or even to say goodbye, would have been nice. He gazes at her like it pains him to look away and murmurs he wants her to always be here, just like this. Before she can react, he gently places a white lace veil over her head. He tells her that human brides wear white, and that light yellow and sky blue would suit her as well. In that moment, she understands he is completely serious about making her his bride. A gallant dragon king is asking her to be his companion. He taught her about her magic, about being the caller, and even awaited her arrival. As long as the dragons won't attack Becquerel anymore, she can shut herself in here instead. She is sure everything will be peaceful. As she reaches into her hood, her fingers brush against a small pouch. She pulls it out, surprised. Inside are the soy sauce cookies, and tucked alongside them, a short note telling her to eat regularly. As she eats one, Keith's face rises unbidden in her mind, his stern expression, the way he would get angry if she came home late without saying where she was going. She can almost hear him scolding her. She hopes he isn't worrying. Suddenly, she straightens. Before she can second-guess herself, she moves. When the guards aren't looking, she breaks into a run, slipping away. She doesn't know where this courage comes from or since when it's been there. Maybe since the day she met Keith in the forest. She doesn't know what will happen when she gets back. She only knows she has to try. As Senna runs, heart pounding, Rishkai stands alone on the cliff, the wind curling silently around him. She wants to tell Keith everything and make sure he doesn't get the wrong idea. She wants to see his face. She moves through the cave as morning light slowly creeps in. Once she gets out of the cave, down the mountain, and onto the road, she knows she would probably be able to find her way back to the castle. But as she turns a corner, she freezes. To her shock, Galt is standing there. Both of them pause, staring at each other, blinking in disbelief. Then she screeches and calls out his name. She asks what he is doing there and whether he came to look for her. A shadow passes over his face. After a moment, he admits that he did not want to find her at all. She freezes, then slowly asks him why not. Galt tells her that Prince Keith does not need her, that he does not care where she goes, and that she should just disappear. As he begins to turn away, she calls after him and asks if that means he did not come to look for her. He replies that Prince Keith ordered the search on his own account, but only for 3 days, and after that they must return to the castle. He tells her to hurry up and go back to the dragon's nest. She retorts that she thinks he at least owes her an explanation. Suddenly, he uses his magic and summons a flame in his hand, then turns toward her and tells her to be quiet. Her face pales as she realizes he is threatening her. She knew he was angry at her, but this feels childish and extreme. She tells him to wait and to at least explain himself, but he suddenly screams at her not to hurt Prince Keith anymore. That word makes her freeze. Anymore? Of course, he has always been Keith's loyal retainer. Despite her fear, she asks if she did something wrong. He snaps at her to shut up and go back, saying she is just like Roland. A punch filled with fire comes straight toward her, and in that moment she realizes that running away is for losers. Instead of dodging, she chooses to face it head-on. He manages to stop himself before he can hurt her. She says she knows she is at fault, but now that she has left, she has decided she will not keep running away. The next time she goes out, she will face whatever comes, no matter what. She repeats that to herself again and again. He weakly says he does not care about her reasons. She murmurs that he does not have to care, but she wants to understand, because she was brought out here by Keith and she wants to act according to his wishes. She then asks who Roland is. Galt sighs and says that Roland is Prince Keith's foster father, adding that she must have overheard it at the castle. He finally states that Prince Keith is the illegitimate 6th prince. His mother died at a young age, so he was raised by a man who worked as a researcher, who lived alone in the woods. 4 years ago Vardas, the king of Beckerel, realized that the royal family wouldn't have enough pawns at their disposal if they used only legitimate children, and so he began a search for illegitimate children who possess royal blood. Prince Keith's foster father, Roland, was an eccentric man who researched plants. He was no good at day-to-day tasks, but he was always looking out for someone, and so everyone around him trusted him. One day, Keith went to Roland to inform him that there was another customer and told him to fix his hair before going out. He then noticed that Roland had not touched the food he had prepared and questioned him about it. Roland only smiled and replied that he thought he would eat it later, when he could properly focus on it. Keith grumbled, for Roland, later usually meant 2 days. Since Keith had already made fresh food, he insisted that this time Roland eat it all. The king had told Galt if the prince resists, he could kidnap him if that is what it takes. Those were his orders. It did seem like Roland knew about the prince's bloodline, although Prince Keith himself did not appear to know. He thought that Roland was a suitable foster father for Prince Keith, at least at first. He never showed a single hint of impatience or made Prince Keith anxious. Anyone could see it was a happy household. Prince Keith too was truly attached to this mild-mannered man as if he were his real father. He says as far as he knows, Prince Keith has only felt at ease and spoken familiarly with her and Roland. When Galt was talking to Roland, Keith came running complaining that Roland kept putting things back in the wrong place on the shelf. Roland bowed to Galt and requested him to allow to explain to the boy. Galt told him that tonight there will be time to say his goodbye as father and son. Roland was trembling and couldn't keep calm or choose his words carefully. That must have been the first time Prince Keith saw Roland upset. That day, Roland finally told him the truth. He was the Prince of Bequirrel, and it was time to return to his real father. Without waiting for a response, Roland practically pushed him out of the house and ordered Galt to take him away at once. Keith shouted, demanding some reply, but Roland only glanced back once, locking eyes with his son, and quietly admitted that he envied him. That was the first time Prince Keith experienced contempt and betrayal. After that, as a member of the royal family, Prince Keith spent as much time as possible studying and absorbed all kinds of lessons. Without looking back at the home where he had been raised. Maybe Galt rushed him into this. Was this really the best course of action? Then, after 6 months, Roland died from an epidemic. They were never able to meet again as father and son. Roland was envious of him. Those words from that day were like a curse that bound Prince Keith. He cannot be allowed happiness. He must learn more and improve his skills. He cannot be glad of his situation. He has to stand on his own 2 feet. He has to prove he's worth it. That is what Keith heard. When Keith learned that all the princes were to form their own platoons of knights, he approached Galt, who had been quietly observing from a corner, and instructed him to lead his platoon. Keith told him this is something he must do, be his shield and fulfill his duty as a knight. That is what he should do. No time to dwell on regrets. Keith smiled faintly and noted that Galt seemed the strongest, and he wanted him to protect him. That day, Galt knelt before the prince, silently vowing that from then on he would become his master's sword and shield, willing to risk his life to protect him. Yet, in the end, even his loyalty could not change everything. Still, Prince Keith had proven he could overcome challenges on his own. That is the 6th prince whom he serves. And she reminds him of Roland. She has already made him feel the same way, and he's sure she's going to betray him. She stays quiet for a moment. Good for you. I'm envious. The words echo in her mind. Then she says she understands. He asks what she means. She says he might try to stop her, but she has to go back to Keith. When Keith was pushed away by Roland, that misunderstanding, that wound, he has carried it silently all this time. He snaps at her. What does she know about misunderstanding? She snaps back, remembering she said the same thing to a dear friend once. She swears she won't betray Keith and must speak to him. He is quiet for a moment, then looks away. She can do what she wants, he says, but she has to find her own way. As she starts to move, he tosses a small ball of light toward her. She shouldn't fall and give Keith an even uglier view, he mutters. She looks at it, thinking they wouldn't expect it from his appearance, but his design sense is really delicate. She ends up smiling. What a gentle shape. A loud, familiar voice suddenly calls out, asking if Senna is there. She spins around and calls back to Keith, saying she is here. For a moment, they stare at each other in shock, before he quickly rushes to her side. She almost hugs him, but freezes at the last second and staggers back, her face turning red as she wonders what she was doing. He freezes too for a moment, then forces himself to focus, anger snapping through him as he scolds her, saying she should have at least told him she was leaving. She asks how she was supposed to do that. Even his guards call out to him, but he tells them to stay back. He then starts firing questions at her, asking if she ate properly, where she had been, and whether she was warm enough, until his voice trails off and he quietly asks if she is all right. She murmurs yes, adding that the dragon was well-mannered. They sit in a corner together, where she tells him everything. After listening, he asks if that means her magic is the element of heaven and if she is the caller who guides dragons. She asks if he has ever heard of it, and he admits this is his first time, but says he is glad she was not hurt after being kidnapped and that the wind dragon settling down is a great help to the kingdom. Still, he adds that he does not like that rascal Rishkai and bluntly asks if she plans to marry him, telling her not to because she will regret it. She admits that Rishkai said she could take time to think about becoming his companion, but he argues that even if Rishkai is the new king of the wind dragons, he has no right to force her into anything. Her gaze drifts to the small ball of light flickering in her hand, and she realizes it is starting to fade. He notices it too and comments that it is quite something, asking if she learned household magic. She replies that it is not that simple and begins to say it was given by someone, then stops, realizing that if she is going to mention Roland, she should do it now. Yet the moment feels too gentle, and she wishes they could keep talking like this, knowing that once she brings it up, things may never feel the same again. The relationship they have built, this comfortable closeness, could all be torn down by a single utterance. Even so, she decides to face it head-on. He apologizes abruptly, saying he did not mean to mock her or make light of anything. Her voice drops as she admits she heard it from Galt, just moments ago, right before she found him, and that he told her everything about Roland too. He goes completely still. Too still. As if even his breathing has stopped. Then, in a thin, breathless whisper, he says it is all in the past. It has nothing to do with her. He does not want to talk about it. She does not stop. She says it was a painful memory, that is why he never told her, why he told no one, why he locked himself away instead. His composure cracks. He snaps, asking if she is trying to console him, insisting he is not hurt, that he had forgotten it long ago. Yet he cannot look at her. She says quietly but she cannot forget. Even when she squashes her feelings and puts a lid on them, she's filled with regret and she overflows with it. She asks herself, why did she say that every time? He puts an end to her words, starting to say he understands that he appreciates her concern. She cuts him off. He thinks he is moving on, she says, but invisible shackles still cling to him. Shackles left by someone who is no longer in this world. They cannot touch him anymore. All they can do is hold him in place. His voice hardens. She will leave him too, he says, just like this time. Does she have any idea how worried he was? She does not hesitate. Even if she is kidnapped, she will not leave his side. He is the one who taught her magic. He is the one who invited her on this journey. They are still in the middle of it. If there is a misunderstanding, she will hear him out, even if he is angry. Especially if he is. He asks what she is talking about. She repeats Roland's words back to him. Good for you. I am envious of you. He goes still. Too still. His heart braces as if struck. She lowers her gaze and admits she once said those same words to someone important to her. That is why she knows. Those words were never a curse. They were never meant to be remembered, never meant to be dragged back into the light again and again. Once, they had been close. The three of them. In her formal life, the reason she became a shut-in was because the girl who she thought was her closest friend was dumped by her long-term boyfriend. He cut things off without even a word of goodbye. She always told her about how great her boyfriend was, she would ask her for advice which made her feel happy. Besides, she thought that this must be how best friends are. But her story started becoming sadder and it seemed like no matter how terrible he acted, she just couldn't leave him. That is why she was really relieved. She heard more about him than any other of their friends, so she wanted to be able to say something to show she understood her best of all. She got carried away and told her he didn't seem like a good person, so it is better that they are not there, and it was good for her. As soon as she said that, everything went silent. It was like the voice speaking wasn't her. It only seemed to make it clearer that those words did not show the least bit of empathy. Although it could be said that she had made a blunder, she hurt her. Nevertheless, she hurt her. She needed to apologize, she knew that, but she couldn't even summon up the courage to make a proper apology. That is why she thinks what Roland said wasn't meant to be a betrayal. He wanted what was best for him. But he was upset at the thought of them parting. His thoughts were a mess, so he couldn't be the perfect parent. The reason he was upset was because he was very precious to him. After all, the Roland he knew was that kind of person, wasn't he? She had told herself that even if she apologizes, it will never reach her friend. It is already too late. The realization breaks something inside her. She starts to cry, the words spilling out in a broken apology, while Keith remains frozen in place. His thoughts drift to Roland. To the day Roland told him he had a bright future ahead of him, that it was good for him. Slowly, Keith reaches out. He tells her he understands. That it is all right. He says he forgave him a long time ago, but hearing her apologize in his place makes it feel real, as if he can finally let it go. And in place of her friend, he forgives her, and he promises he will always be by her side, whenever she needs someone to talk to. She murmurs he does not have to worry about her. He says it is fine. She only needs to stay by his side. After all, he admits, he did gain something from her right away. He has always had a good sense for those kinds of things. She smiles through her tears and says she has so much to gain from him too. He chuckles softly and says she is rather cheeky today. When they return, he tells her, he will make her miso soup. They will add mushrooms and thinly sliced meat. At the same time, guards rush toward Lord Isekaid, breathless, reporting that his bride has escaped. They say they only looked away for a moment, and now they will have to lock her in a room next time. Isekaid stops them at once. He says he knows. He let her go. He wishes to respect her. He wishes to give her time. The old man beside him stares in shock and asks how that can be. She is only a small girl, he says. He could force her to obey, and if she has nowhere else to go, her heart would eventually turn toward him. Rishkai asks why he would do that. He says a human girl's heart is delicate and must not be forced. He reminds him that's what he taught him. Once she bears a grudge, she is likely to unforgive. He does not want to be hated by her. He only wants her to turn toward him of her own will. The old man scoffs, calling them weak words, saying he let her escape for such a foolish reason. Rishkai answers quietly that the important thing is her heart. He has conveyed his feelings. What comes next should be her decision, taken in her own time. Suddenly, the man drops to his knees. He apologizes and says that what he had told Rishkai about humans only applies to those of the kingdom of Zainal. The heart of a young girl from Becquerel is a fickle thing. One can only assume she will forget him and move on with her life. Rishkai freezes and then slowly asks if she will forget him. The old man replies yes. Humans are heartless creatures. They betray easily, forget kindness, and turn to hatred without hesitation. Rishkai's voice tightens as he asks if Senna will come to hate him. When Rishkai first learned of the caller's existence, he wondered if such a being truly walked the world. He imagined when they would appear, what kind of presence they would have, what words they might exchange. He wondered what kind of bond might form, whether they could stand close. He found himself waiting for it. Now, as the old man speaks, something inside him slips. Rishkai transforms, his balance faltering as his form begins to shift. A ripple of alarm spreads through those nearby as they call out for him to steady himself, to calm down, but he does not hear them. Far below, the ground beneath Keith and Senna shudders. Stone cracks open, dust spilling as Senna looks up, her breath catching at the sound. Before she can move, Yorma and Tiberiu rush toward her, saying they have been searching everywhere. Tiberiu's expression is tight as he warns that the spirits are restless and that they must leave at once. Senna looks at him in surprise, realizing he can see the wind spirits too. Suddenly, hurried footsteps approach. People come running, and before she can react, Keith steps in front of her, shielding her as the others instinctively follow. The old man steps forward, his tone sharp. So the bride is here. He demands they return her at once. Keith snaps back, asking if he is not from Zainal, stating clearly that Senna is not the Dragon King's bride. The man scoffs and asks whose bride she is, then. Keith mutters how would he know and turns to Senna, saying that if she ever chooses to marry, it should be to someone she wants, not someone she is forced to stand beside. Senna is touched. Even now, she thinks, he is worrying over her future like a mother would. Galt covers his face, muttering about how pitiful Keith is, while Yorma laughs and says he still has a long way to go. The old man's voice drops as he pleads with her. She is their only chance, he says. The only one who can calm him. The air bends. A roar tears through the space, as the dragon appears. The ground convulses, wind detonating outward with such force that Senna is hurled against the wall. She slides down, stunned, breath knocked from her lungs. The dragon stands there. And he does not recognize her. The dragon growls low and deep, the sound vibrating through the cavern. Galt shouts for the guards to protect Prince Keith, but Keith pushes himself upright anyway, swaying as he faces Rishkai. He calls out to him, voice steady and mocking, saying Senna cannot marry someone this unstable. He says he will be the one to take care of her. The dragon freezes. Slowly, Rishkai lifts his head. Galt's blood runs cold. He realizes it too late. The dragon is preparing to attack. A roar erupts, scorching heat rushing forward, flames tearing through the air, but Tiberiu reacts instantly, throwing up a barrier just in time. The fire crashes against it, shaking the cave. Keith spins around, panic breaking through his composure. He shouts Senna's name, asking where she is. Yorma is holding her, his grip tight. He says running away will not be enough this time. Keith says Rishkai cannot hear them now, cannot understand reason. Senna whispers that he just became king, maybe he is not stable yet. Keith answers grimly that her escape must have pushed him into a frenzy. If that is the case, he says, then he will bring him back to his senses. He begins chanting, power flaring around him as Galt orders the knights to charge. Senna panics, asking if this is really all right. Yorma answers calmly that it is fine. He is the king of dragons. He will not fall so easily. He sets Senna down and begins chanting as well. She watches in shock as magic reinforces his body, the earth itself responding to him. So that is how he carried her so easily. Yorma draws his bow, eyes sharp. He mutters that no matter how tough Rishkai is, if the arrow hits his eye, it will hurt. The arrow flies. It strikes true. The dragon roars louder, more furious than before. Yorma stares, stunned. No way. Another roar shakes the cavern, panic spreading through everyone. Keith shouts to Senna, asking if she can use her destruction magic. She answers quickly that it will not work. He tells her to try anyway. She forces herself to think. There has to be something she can do. She reaches out, rocks trembling as they fall toward the dragon. Keith calls out, asking what she is doing, but she already knows it is not enough. Small stones will not stop him. She needs something bigger. No. Not bigger. Her breath catches as realization dawns. If she sings instead of calls, the power will change. It will increase. Keith tells her to get back. It is dangerous. But she finally understands. This is her element. She apologizes softly for not understanding it until now. This may be her first time using her magic of heaven, but if they can hear her, she wants them to lend her their strength. She steps forward. Keith calls her name again. She turns back and tells him she forgot to say it before, but she is thankful he found her. He swallows, watching her stand her ground, and murmurs look at her making strides. He moves to her side and asks what he can do. She asks him to back her up, just a little. He squeezes her hand and tells her to leave it to him. He smirks faintly and tells her to show him this mysterious element, this magic of heaven. As Senna begins, she reminds herself that words matter. Words carry feeling. Keith told her to remember that, to imagine the spirits beside her, watching, waiting to hear what she will say. She has learned from her regrets. She will not let this moment slip away. Her voice trembles at first, then steadies as she sings. Those who dwell in the heavens, near and far, the seventh who glitter, known far and wide, gather, so your power even grows more. To this world you know so well, you flicker gently, a blissful moment, but gentleness alone is not enough. Break it. Disappear. Clear the way. As the final words leave her lips, fairies emerge before her eyes, radiant and unreal. Light floods her vision. She stares, breathless, seeing them for the first time. She adds one last line, her voice ringing clear, calling for the young king to return to himself. The cavern erupts in light. Everyone watches as the ceiling cracks, stone tearing free. A massive slab of rock crashes down onto the dragon. Silence follows. Senna stares in disbelief. She did it. The dragon transforms back into Rishkai, shrinking as shame overtakes him. He covers his face with a trembling hand, muttering about the things he has done. Senna steps forward, relief clear on her face, telling him silently that she is glad he is back. Rishkai rushes to her, and Keith bristles, glaring at him as if the dragon's tunnel vision for Senna offends him personally. Ha! Rishkai looks heartbroken as he asks if she hates him now. Senna shakes her head, assuring him that as long as he does not lose control again, she does not. He looks relieved and vows never to hurt her again. The group stands there offended. What about them? Senna apologizes for running away without a word, but adds firmly that she cannot become Rishkai's bride. She wants to go with Keith. There are still too many things she wants to know, too many experiences she wishes to share. Rishkai repeats Keith's name slowly, studying him and measuring the strength behind that chant. He considers it carefully before nodding, acknowledging that above all, he wishes for her happiness. For now, that happiness seems to be with Keith. He tells Senna that if she ever changes her mind, she may return to Ryudo Mountain and continue building her nest, shaping her life as she chooses. The old man beside him gasps, scolding him for being too lenient. The people from Beckerel are not to be trusted, he warns, and letting her go could result in bloodshed against everyone present. Keith calls out calmly to Rishkai and says, is it not better to learn from one's mistake? Rishkai silently acknowledges that he, too, has more to learn from these men. Perhaps this is what it means to be human. With a deep, steady breath, he announces that he is going home. That evening, on their way back, the group sets up tents and begins preparing food. Keith cooks Senna's favorite dish and ensures the guards are fed, while Galt watches in disbelief. Senna follows quietly, heading back to Beckerel Castle with Keith and the others, unaware of the challenges that await her there. Meanwhile, the king dismisses the messenger and mutters how unexpected to think that a caller would appear. The queen says Keith was the one who brought her here, correct? So even he can be useful too sometimes. And then the queen says, so what can this little girl even do? Get a dragon to do some tricks. The king mutters that the powers are not recorded in the library here. If she travels elsewhere, she may discover something passed down through the ages, the ability to control dragons. The queen asks, just talking over a small country like the neighboring Zenith, but ruling over the entire continent? He replies yes, first he will conquer the two major countries in his way. The fire dragon intercepts intruders on the border walls of the Fondona Empire. And the water dragon blesses the seas around the Sephra kingdom. They cannot even dream of invading these major powers normally, so it's a question of how they make this girl Senna obey them. It won't be easy because Keith is the one who brought her in. The queen suggests announcing that Senna is Keith's fiancée. He understands what she is playing. They should close down her options, huh? The palace rises above them as Keith returns with Senna, knights waiting at the entrance. The carriage stops, and people quickly gather around, welcoming them back. Keith steps down first and reaches for Senna's hand. Halfway through helping her down, he pauses. His gaze lifts to the crowd as they smile, voices overlapping. Then it reaches him. The words are said lightly, almost offhand, carried by the noise around them. Congratulations on their engagement. Keith stiffens. Senna does too. Just when they think the matter with Rishkai is finally settled, everything unravels. The moment they return, voices rise around them. Cheers echo through the gates. People shout blessings, calling out for Prince Keith and the caller. They proclaim that Becquerel's future is bright now, that the kingdom holds the greatest power of all, the one that can rule dragons. Keith mutters under his breath what is happening. Not long after, he and Senna kneel before the king. Senna swallows hard. She never imagined she would stand before him like this. The king lounges against his throne, one leg crossed over the other, his posture careless. He frightens her without even trying. He looks at Keith and calmly commends him for completing the subjugation of Grihelm. Then his eyes shift to Senna, welcoming the caller to the kingdom. Keith speaks up, saying there is something he must clarify. Senna is staying in the capital for study, nothing more. He did not bring her here to declare marriage, nor to spread word that Becquerel has claimed the caller. He requests that this be stopped at once. The king responds coolly, asking whether Ludfalla Forest and Manon do not both fall within Becquerel's territory. There is no doubt, he says, that the caller belongs to their kingdom. Keith's voice sharpens. He says clearly that he did not bring Senna here to bind her to Becquerel. He asks the king to stop using her as a political tool. The queen speaks for the first time, smiling as she says she understands. After all, Senna is his beloved fiancée. Keith turns to her and asks if she was the one who spread the rumor. The queen feigns surprise, lightly wondering if it was false. She says the announcement was already made while they were away, and the news has reached other countries. Canceling it now would bring disgrace upon the royal family. Whether Senna is truly his fiancée or not, Keith only needs to accept it. Keith narrows his eyes but says nothing. Instead, he rises abruptly and tells Senna they are leaving. Later, Keith and his companion sit together, exhaustion weighing on them. Tiberius says information on callers is scarce, and the king is clearly trying to claim one. Yorma adds that after the spectacle with Rishkai, it was bound to draw attention. Galt grimly notes that things will only worsen now that the queen has taken interest. The rumors will not fade easily. He turns to Senna and apologizes, asking her what she wants to do now. She looks confused, asking what he means. He says even if she returns to the forest, others will come after her. Not just Becquerel. And for that he is truly sorry. She tells him not to say that, she has never thought that Keith was trying to use her. He says the fact that she has been trapped by the kingdom. He never wanted her to get caught up in the kingdom's affairs. She drops her gaze and slowly murmurs, to her Keith was the one who brought her out of the forest. When they called her a caller and she didn't know what to do, he stayed by her side. She can only think of how thankful she is to him. If she had been alone, she would not have known what to do. So when it comes to being used, she tells him he does not need to think that hard about it. Her voice is calm, almost careless. He looks at her in surprise, not expecting that answer. He turns his face away, a faint warmth rising to his cheeks, and admits that when he looks at her, all his worries seem to fade. After a brief pause, he asks about the engagement, asking if she is really fine with it. She replies that she has not achieved anything as a scholar yet, and it would be awkward to be seen as someone freeloading off his name. She adds that if Keith also denies it, the matter will likely end as nothing more than a rumor. He glares at her, asking if he is the only one being bothered by this. She ignores that and asks instead if he can accompany her to the magic practice grounds. He grumbles and agrees, but her words, more importantly, stick in his mind more than he would like to admit. In the garden, she begins her training while he watches from nearby. He points out that she is using a sink that is very close to a call. She looks confused and says she cannot see the spirits either. He mutters to himself, thinking that she is as hopeless as ever, both with household magic and with any of the 7 attributes. She mutters 7 attributes and she truly thought she might be able to use all of them. He says that as people often say, the gods only grant one talent. She looks sad and the shift catches his attention. He notes that she seems more troubled about her magic than he expected. She murmurs that it is not just frustration. If she truly holds such an amazing power within her, she wants to understand it. More than that, she feels it is her responsibility to practice properly, so she does not make a mistake when using it. The power to rule over the dragons, callers. The first time she met a dragon here, it was huge, strong and scary. On the Glaciers continent, there are 7 dragon kings. Just as there are 7 attributes of magic. Rishkai just happened to be rational, but the other dragon kings may not be the same. The Beckrel kingdom seeks to kill the dragons and spares no effort even if they fail. Zanil kingdom worships them, but attempts to manipulate them for their own use. And the unparalleled strength of the dragons never fails to inspire awe and fear. Before you know it, you will be caught in their throat and die. Even if she is a caller, she is still just a human, facing off against dragons. She is honestly scared. Layers of flowers rise from the ground and swirl around her all at once, blooming out of nowhere. She freezes in shock. Keith is the one who does it, and he tells her to stop spacing out. If she cannot even grasp magic at that level, how does she expect to handle her real power? She snaps back, saying she was seriously thinking just now. He tells her to wipe that worried look off her face. He is here, after all. Kieran cuts in, telling her to forget household magic and the 7 attributes she clearly cannot use. She should focus on a single sign for her explosion magic first. He asks if they should try the same method as last time. She shakes her head and says it is unrelated. He raises a brow and says if that is the case, then they should work on the chant itself. The line about awakening the fledgling king does not apply here, so she needs to think of something else to replace it. Meanwhile, soldiers from the Fandona Empire appear outside the palace gates and demand entry. They announce they bear a message from His Majesty Isaac for the king. Inside, the king reads the letter aloud. It is from Fandona, addressed to Beckrel, a nation they call one of a bygone era. They demand that Beckrel hand over their so-called caller so they may confirm the truth. If not, they will immediately declare war. They promise in 10 days the land will be reduced to a sea of flames. There will be no negotiations. The letter says both the fire dragon and its master have little patience. The queen says this is all because he went and provoked the other nations. The king replies that after the Rishkai incident, he believed revealing the existence of the caller would force the others to submit. When Galt relays everything to Keith, Senna looks stunned. So they had been planning this all along. Galt adds that of all nations, it had to be the Fandona Empire that moved first. Senna asks if the empire is really that dangerous, like a volcano ready to erupt. Keith answers that it is, and adds that they revealed their hand far too early. The nation that prides itself as the strongest in Glaciers, she had always considered it as a place with no relation to her. She had her hands full just dealing with the things in front of her. She was just trying to live normally and never thought about the outside world, least of all a fairly insular neighboring country. The king orders Tiberiu to stall the envoy and buy them time. Tiberiu answers that it will be difficult. The envoy refuses to be escorted to a waiting room and insists on standing in the reception hall instead. If they do not receive a reply soon, the emperor will act. At the southwest border, where Beckrel meets the Fandona Empire, the king grows impatient. He mutters that the reply is still not here. Without waiting any longer, he gives the order. The king mutters the reply still isn't here, and orders the dragon to burn the fields and laughs as the flames spread. He calls them rats from a puny nation. As the carriage rolls toward the Fandona Empire, Senna looks out the window. Stone buildings stretch across her view. Fondoa Empire is a large nation dominated by volcanoes. Drivers usually live in the non-aggression territory at each provincial border. The wind dragon lives in Ryudo Mountains, which is between Bikural and Zanil Kingdom. That is one example. But the Fandona Empire stationed a large herd of fire dragons inside the castle walls surrounding the empire. Fire dragons are treated as weapons under the command of the supreme ruler, Emperor Isaac. During the previous emperor's era, Fandona Empire was much smaller than its current boundaries. But as soon as the ambitious Isaac, who's skilled in the art of war, became the emperor, he immediately expanded the land. That was the history she heard before she came here. She is the one who decides to go, yet she has no idea what kind of impression she should make once she arrives. The king's words echo in her mind. If Emperor Isaac says 10 days, then 10 days it is. She knows what that means. The terror of war would not stop at borders. It could reach Mainan City. No, it must not. Arnold and Tasha are there. The queen's voice resurfaces in her thoughts, sharp and unsettling, suggesting she seduced the fire dragon the same way she did Rishkai. She would only need to show her face, the queen had said lightly, as if speaking of a trivial favor. If she is worried about her hometown, then she should go. And so she goes. Not because she wants to, but because if she does not, this kingdom will be dragged into war. The king had told her he would not send her alone, insisting she take the knights with her. Now the carriage door opens. The moment stretches thin as she steps down, her boots touching foreign ground. Emperor Isaac is already there, waiting for her in person. That alone makes her stomach tighten. She will have to bluff her way through this. She has no choice but to wear the caller's face. It is hard to keep a proper expression even if she dresses up like a saint. That is why she will try not to talk or tremble as much as possible. With a calm face, she greets him and introduces herself as the divine messenger of heaven, the caller who rules over the dragons. His face stays unreadable as he looks at her and says that so she is the caller. His voice is flat, almost bored. He reaches out, declaring her welcome to the empire, his hand lifting toward her face as if it already belongs to him. Galt, Korma, and Tiberiu draw their swords. The air tightens. For a split second, everything freezes. Then Isaac laughs, the sound echoing across the courtyard. In the same breath, his own sword flashes out and clashes against Galt's. He comments, almost pleasantly, that Galt is quite skilled, why he does not join Fandona instead. Galt stiffens, forcing out a strained reply, asking him not to joke. Isaac's smile thins. He says he only summoned the caller. Escort guards are unnecessary. Unless, of course, they intend to start a war right here. No one answers. The tension sits heavy until Tiberiu steps forward and states that they have come to deliver the caller safely. He requests permission to set up a camp outside the castle to protect her again when she leaves. Isaac barely listens, already losing interest, and tells them to do whatever they like. She remains standing there, stiff and uncertain, when a maid quietly steps up beside her and tells her not to make that face. Everything is proceeding as planned. If he had come as an escort he would have been driven off immediately. She thinks that is hardly reassuring. Her gaze flickers to Keith. Disguised as a maid, he stands there far too beautiful for the role, his features delicate enough to be convincing at a glance. He meets her eyes and warns her, low and quick, that she looks far too easy to trick and should not say anything unnecessary. She nods without thinking. No matter what form he takes, he still feels like Keith. Isaac turns back to her and remarks that now the irritating group has left. Her name is Senna, is it not? He tells her to look at him. Instinctively, she lifts her eyes. Keith steps in front of her at once. With exaggerated politeness and a deliberately high-pitched voice, he explains that the young lady caller is extremely inexperienced. If His Majesty stares at her like that, her pulse will go wild and she may very well die. The king wished to confirm her faith, and as he can plainly see, she is standing right there, having shown herself. He adds that she appears tired and asks whether she might be excused. Isaac laughs again. He says he thought he had made himself clear. He intends to confirm the caller's existence, whether she is genuine, and what kind of power she possesses. She tries to speak. In an instant, he is beside her. His hand tangles in her hair, yanking her close, his face inches from hers. He remarks that her black hair seems real enough, and her eyes hide something interesting. The quickest way to confirm her power is for her to become his. He promises her the finest life imaginable. Keith moves without hesitation. He lunges forward, demanding to know what Isaac thinks he is doing, the sharpened edge of a hair comb pressed against Isaac's neck. The moment is brief. The king reacts just as fast, wrenching the weapon away and tossing it aside. He looks amused, commenting that she must usually wield a slender sword. She would be cut down at that distance, but she is not bad. She should keep practicing. Keith bristles, snapping that none of that matters. More importantly, arranging her hair took an absurd amount of effort, and he should not touch it so casually. Isaac remarks that it sounds troublesome. Keith continues without pause. She rarely goes outside. She is not used to people. She is sensitive to rain, wind, and changes in pressure, and falls asleep at odd times. All of this, he says sweetly, should be taken into consideration. She is delicate, fragile, easily broken, and he expects her to be treated that way. Senna wants to murder Keith for rambling all that nonsense. Isaac finally mutters what a noise he made. His interest has perished. Tells them their rooms are in the West Tower, already moving away from them, and adds until he has confirmed that Senna is the caller, she will stay here. Keith objects at once, saying that setting a time limit is . But he doesn't finish as Isaac cuts him off, telling him not to tell him what to do. If they try to escape, he will invade Becquerel immediately. If they do not wish to see their homeland turned into a sea of fire, then the caller has no choice but to remain here. Senna stiffens, caught off guard, and asks if he was the one who ordered the fire dragon to burn the fields. Isaac gives her a sideways glance and asks if that interests her. And then says of course it does. She is the caller, after all. He says that if it is Gideon she wishes to see, then she will be allowed to meet him soon. The name makes her pause. Gideon. So that is the name of the king of fire dragons. She cannot help but wonder whether he, too, is being oppressed by humans, despite holding the power to command fire spirits themselves. And if that is the case, she finds herself wanting to hear the reason. She didn't think she could do anything, but she has been feeling restless ever since she came here. She can imagine its form on top of the high walls. A shiver of longing rose up in her. Meanwhile, Isaac approaches Gideon, who is chained and restrained. He stops a few steps away and asks if he can tell if it is the caller or not. Gideon says he smells a nostalgic scent. Isaac asks if that means she's genuine. He replies he doesn't know, but he feels calm. Isaac is lost in thought for a moment and then says if he meets her she might know something. Gideon says yes, which makes Isaac bitter, to think a day would come when he has to rely on someone like her. Morning came and Senna couldn't sleep at all. When she closed her eyes, she kept imagining bad things. Like war or a sea of flames. How many more mornings will she welcome in the Fondona Empire? Keith brushes her hair slowly and tells her they have given her a decent room, so she should look a little happier about it. She lets out a quiet sigh and asks how he is adapting so easily. He teases that he is not a hostage like her and adds that being able to calmly observe one's enemy is more pleasant than he expected. She squints at him, his optimism almost blinding. He tells her it is far too early to be pessimistic, it will ruin the gloss of her hair, and orders her to get a good night's sleep. Then his hands settle on her shoulders and he lowers his voice, promising that no matter what country they are in, he will remain by her side. With that settled, he asks what she plans to wear. She stares at him, clutching her clothes, certain he is enjoying this far too much. He waits patiently outside while she struggles inside the changing room. When he hears her sigh in frustration, he tells her to call him if she cannot manage. She thinks, not for the first time, that Keith is strong in a way that has nothing to do with magic or swords. From the moment they arrived, he ordered everyone to step back. He made it clear that no one but him would attend to his lady. The maids protested, insisting they were acting under His Majesty's orders and suggesting they divide the work. He refused outright. Anything involving his lady would go through him. One maid snapped that they were already short-handed, that he could not simply come in and do as he pleased. Before the argument could grow, another maid came running, breathless, announcing that the mountain of laundry in the linen room had been finished. All of it. Someone had done it. Keith admitted he would not have helped if asked, but said he could not stand the sight of it. The maids glanced down the hallway, suddenly noticing how clean it was, and wondered if it had always been like this. He only shrugged, saying it was only fitting for a hallway his lady would use. As one who served the caller, this was common sense. Just like that, he took control of the castle maids in no time. Inside the changing room, she still cannot tie her dress properly. Keith enters without ceremony, tells her not to force it, and helps her with steady hands. It dawns on her then that she has been leaning on him far more than she realized. She is being thoroughly spoiled. Her voice turns quiet as she asks what she should do to convince Isaac that she is the true caller. Her power feels unreliable, elusive. What if he does not believe her? What if she truly has nothing special at all? How are they supposed to return home? Keith answers without hesitation. She does not need to worry. Her power is real. He has seen it with his own eyes. From the start, Rishkai had known, even from afar. The fire dragon is the one she will meet. Surely, if she meets him, he will recognize her as genuine. She hesitates, wondering if Keith really thinks so, but then decides to trust him. He must be right. Keith points out that the door is unlocked. No one forbade her from stepping outside. Since she didn't choose to come here of her own will, he suggests she go out and broaden her horizons. The idea leaves her momentarily stunned, but she chuckles softly. As she steps into the garden, sunlight spilling over the blossoms, every maid present cannot help but stare, mesmerized by her beauty. Keith notices their gaze and frowns, following their line of sight. Senna breathes a little easier, remarking that she feels calmer out here than in the guest room. The garden is vast, larger than she imagined. Keith grows quiet, brow furrowed. Senna turns to him to ask what's wrong, but freezes when her gaze catches Isaac, who watches her with a dry remark about her enjoyment. Almost instinctively, Keith lunges forward with a broom, nearly attacking, but quickly recovers, greeting the Emperor saying his hand had slipped. Isaac says her maid is the same as ever. She softly asks him why is he here. He replies Gideon's preparations are complete, she will finally meet him. She follows Isaac, Keith close behind, until they approach the massive, chained figure of Gideon. She stops in shock when she sees the king of fire dragons is chained and quickly says how cruel. Is he making him obey him by chaining him? He says these genes are a magic device handed down from the previous generation of the Empire. It is made with the power of the 7 elements and can never be broken. She grimaces and says what a ruthless thing. Isaac then addresses Gideon and says he's tired of looking up, telling him to turn into his human form. He transforms into his human form right before her eyes. When she notices he is not wearing anything, she quickly turns, covering her face in embarrassment. She can't but think even Rishkai made his own clothes. Keith becomes angry and tells him to wear something. He then puts on a pair of pants. Isaac steps closer to Gideon, questioning whether he can discern the caller's presence. Gideon raises his head, silent for a moment. Isaac glances at Senna, wondering if she can tell. She recognizes him as the king, but her chest aches at the sight of him restrained. Anger rises within her at the injustice and she doesn't shy away from telling him she's very angry that he is restraining him like that. Isaac smirks faintly, asking what she intends to do. She retorts she cannot forgive him for the way he treats Gideon. His eyes narrow briefly, then he looks away with a heavy sigh, saying she will not forgive him. But then he smiles coldly and says fine by him. He glances at Keith and asks what he is staring at. Keith meets his gaze steadily but says nothing. Later that night, Senna lies on her bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Gideon did not respond at all. That means she cannot go home yet, but she doesn't care about that. Right now she cannot leave Gideon. In Becquerel, dragons are figures of awe. Rishkai flew around freely. But in the Fondona Empire, humans are forced to obey a ruthless emperor, Isaac called the supreme ruler. His thoughts make him overwhelmed and she cannot stay still. She rises, wondering if she's angry or sad. All her life, she has only wanted her surroundings to be peaceful. At the worst, she wanted to be aware of herself as the caller. So what is the strong feeling whirling in her chest? A soft knock echoes against the door, and Keith's voice follows, asking if she is worrying about something. Senna turns, and there he is, leaning casually against the door frame, a small smile on his face. Later, on the rooftop, Senna cradles a steaming cup in her hands while Keith sits perched on the railing, glancing at her with a hint of surprise. He comments that it's really unlike her to resent Isaac so much. Senna takes a slow sip, then admits quietly that perhaps she has never been this angry in her life. She wonders if it's because she is the caller, able to sense the dragon's pain, or if it's simply a normal feeling for a human to have. Keith admits he doesn't like the way things are done in this country either, but in this case maybe it is because she has a connection of sorts with Dragon. She repeats connection and admits right now, rather than returning back, she's trying to do something about those chains. She wants to free Gideon. Maybe the reason he did not say much was because he was being manipulated by the chains. Keith asks her what if her power to guide dragons is meant to urge coexistence between the dragons and humans. But he doesn't think Gideon is being manipulated. She asks him why, but Keith doesn't answer. Quietly, he takes the hot drink from her hands, muttering a spell under his breath. In an instant, Senna feels herself lifted off the rooftop, flying through the air, her body stiff with shock. Keith guides her toward the upper side of the palace and says because he studied how to subjugate Grihelm. He tells her to look ahead and says there are 30 wind dragons on Mount Ryudo, led by Rishkai himself. But there are 500 fire dragons and Gideon reigns supreme among them all. At the age of 220 he became king of the dragons and now at 300 he is in his prime. It is unbelievable that an existence that towers above the rest in physical and mental prowess even among the mighty dragons could be manipulated by a man's will. Senna listens carefully and realizes just how many dragons there are in this land, over 500. Keith watches her as she stares ahead, curious about what has caught her attention. She meets his gaze and admits that she has been wondering if any dragons are flying in the sky. He explains that fire dragons don't soar like the wind dragons, they specialize in one-on-one combat. Once they bite, they don't let go, and the last one standing is the strongest. He adds that Isaac is similar, relying entirely on swordsmanship since he cannot use magic. In that way, he resembles the fire dragons. Senna frowns, realizing the implication. If Isaac isn't informed about magic, he will not recognize her as the caller even if she demonstrates her destructive powers. Keith leans closer and gently bumps his head against hers, acknowledging her point, then suggests that she will have to unleash some kind of new magic that will make Isaac react in shock. That is the only way. She admits quietly that she cannot even sing well. He insists that it does not matter, no matter the element, magic ranges from 100 to 500, and heaven magic should be no different. What matters is when one starts learning it. He has been studying household magic since he was 5 and, upon arriving at the palace, has learned about the types of magic from a teacher who even teaches him how to read them. Keith then asks where she has learned to say, explode and destroy. Senna falls silent, thinking about a past life where she cursed the world. She knows if she reveals that, he will not believe her and might be turned off. Instead, she says that for as long as she can remember, she has felt a desire to destroy and explore things. Keith stares at her deadpan, muttering, wow, dryly. Senna worries he might think her gloomy. He crosses his arms and teases, noting that negotiations seem to come naturally to her. She imagines the fairies telling her that they blew up the school on her wish or they exploded the world. Keith then asks if she has any other wishes. They do not have to be magical, they can be anything she wants to change or something that troubles her. Senna murmurs, anything, dropping her gaze and feeling her cheeks warm. She says when she's angry or feeling down. She wonders why she gets angry. He replies yeah, he also thinks that it's a pain. She says she wants to do something about the fact that she gets pumped up at night but has no motivation in the morning, and she wishes she could sleep in. That would be really mundane magic. Then her eyes brighten with sudden excitement. She wants to remember beautiful things, rare sights, and countless other experiences. She talks about a kind of magic where she can close her eyes and remember things without anyone knowing, something she can look back on later and grin about. Lee thinks she could create a magic craft like that using earth and light elements. She wonders if people around her would notice when she uses it, and he realizes that would be a problem. He starts thinking seriously about how to make it work only for her. She knows she might be acting a little imprudent, but ever since leaving the forest, everything has been new, and she does not want to forget any of it. While still thinking, he looks at her and remarks that this kind of magic is not something she can show off to Isaac. He then notices the cold, tells her she will freeze, and insists they leave. He brings her back to her room and says he will wake her in the morning, telling her to sleep right away and not let her shoulders, legs, or stomach get cold. Before he can continue, she smiles and tells him she understands. She feels the mood was strange earlier, but now everything feels normal again. Then there is a knock on the door, and both of them freeze. Isaac announces that he is coming in. She panics immediately and starts pushing Lee, reminding him that he does not have his wig and is not dressed as a maid. She tells him to hide. She shoves him under the blanket, but he panics too and insists it would be better to leave and get his disguise before Isaac enters. He barely manages to slip out as the door opens. Isaac enters casually and starts talking about what she saw during the day, saying he was only trying to humor her. As he walks in further, she tells him not to invite himself into her room at this hour and asks what he wants. He smirks, and before she can react, she is forced onto the bed, with him looming over her and holding her hands down. He mutters that when a man visits a girl's room at night, there is only one thing to do. He claims that even if she is the caller, sleeping with her would make her his, and that if she stays in Fondona, he would protect her. She refuses, terrified. Suddenly, the sound of a sword hitting the floor echoes through the room. Without turning around, Isaac orders the maid to step back and warns that this time he will kill her. In the next second, Keith lunges at him with the sword and states that forcing someone to do something against their will makes him an awful man. Isaac narrows his eyes and mutters so he was never a maid. Keith says he should introduce himself properly and reveals that he is Keith, the 6th prince of the Becquerel kingdom and Senna's fiancé. Isaac smiles bitterly, acknowledging the rumors were true, but dismisses him as a prince in name only, someone he can trample. He attacks, striking Keith with his sword and kicking him in the stomach, sending him stumbling back as he coughs in pain. Isaac declares that Keith does not stand a chance. Either he kills him and takes Senna, or Keith runs away, and Isaac will be the one to comfort her. Senna's face drains of color as she calls out to Keith. He looks at her, and for a brief second, his expression softens. He says that she grew up in the woods, untouched by men, with no resistance to the cruelty of the world. He cannot let her lose faith without warning. He wants to protect her. He wants to treasure her. Magic gathers around him as he chants, sharp and focused. He lunges forward, sword aimed straight for Isaac. A barrier snaps into place at the last moment. The impact throws Keith aside, his body slamming into the floor. Isaac states he does not possess magical power, but he has fought hundreds of men. They came at him with everything they had, smoke screens, cheap tricks, reckless slashes. All of it was predictable. Boring. Keith pushes himself up and stares at the shield, realizing it is not raw magic but a crafted one. Isaac answers calmly that magic is just one tool among many. Senna shouts that dragons are not tools. Isaac turns his attention to her, his gaze slow and assessing. He says he should have a quiet, pleasant conversation with the caller. But before that, he drives his sword into Keith's arm. Keith cries out. Isaac looks down at him and calls him a powerless prince, offering a choice, die by his hand or crawl away. Keith grips his sword and tells him he will drag him down to the ground. Isaac lifts his blade again and says he will make sure Keith never speaks another word. Senna moves before she can think. She rushes forward and throws herself between them, wrapping her arms around Keith. The blade stops inches from her. She glares up at Isaac, fury burning in her eyes. Isaac pauses, then smiles. He remarks that he did not expect her to look at him like that. He has to admit he's becoming more interested. Something inside Senna snaps. Her rage surges, wild and uncontrollable. She leans close and whispers something to Keith, who tells her to let it out. Isaac straightens, utterly calm, and says that to guide dragons, only one supreme ruler is needed. Power itself is nothing more than a tool. That is enough, Senna chants the spell, saying to erase a foolish ruler who believes himself untouchable. The magic detonates. The wing of the mansion explodes outward in a violent roar as the structure collapses around them. When the dust settles, Isaac forces himself upright amid the ruins. He looks at the destruction and speaks in awe. So this is the power of the caller. Candlelight flickers weakly through the dungeon, casting long shadows across the stone walls. Senna stirs as cold metal presses into her wrists. She opens her eyes slowly, then straightens when the unfamiliar ceiling comes into view. Confusion settles in as she murmurs to herself, wondering where she is. Her gaze drops to her ankles. Chains. The events of the previous night rush back all at once, and her eyes widen. Panic grips her chest as she scans the cell, until she spots Keith chained to the opposite wall. She crawls toward him, she examines the restraints and realizes they are the same ones once used on Gideon. Her attention shifts to Keith's arm, and she asks about his wound, remembering how badly he had been bleeding. He touches the spot and assures her he is fine, but his expression darkens as his thoughts drift elsewhere. She notices immediately and asks what is wrong. He dismisses it and deliberately changes the subject, pointing out how their voices echo. The place must be vast. He senses many others nearby. Senna understands at once that they are in a jail. Keith calls her name and apologizes, saying he failed to protect her. She shakes her head and tells him that is not true. If anything, she should be the one apologizing. She admits she went too far. He surprises her by saying he heard her sing. She actually did it. Her expression turns somber. She admits that she did, but it only brought them to this situation. He disagrees, telling her she should be proud. He says she was genuinely impressive. Despite the chains, he pushes himself upright and says there is no point sitting still. She asks what he plans to try as he rolls his shoulder and begins chanting. Magic briefly gathers, forming a key in his hand, but it accomplishes nothing. There is no keyhole. He exhales and explains that the chains are powered by magic craft. Wearing them down using the 7 elements would take years. Senna gives an awkward smile, thinking it would be like draining a battery. She suggests exploding the chains, then immediately rejects the idea herself. They cannot risk blowing off their wrists. Instead, she half-jokingly proposes blowing up the entire room. Keith questions how that would help, pointing out that it would only land them back in the same situation. He adds that she fainted immediately after the last explosion. She rises unsteadily and asks what they should do now. Even prisoners get food, she reasons. At least their chains are long enough to move around. Keith smiles softly and remarks that she truly has a strong side. She turns sharply at that and slips. She falls forward, but he catches her just in time. The momentum pulls them both down, her landing awkwardly against him. She scrambles up at once, insisting she only slipped. He tells her he knows, yet both of them are visibly flustered. In their rush to separate, their chains tangle together. Keith stares down at the mess and wonders aloud how things ended up like this. Senna admits she has never been good at puzzles. He tells her she is overthinking it. When she blew up her room before, she simply hugged him. Before she can react, he does exactly that. He holds her steady and tells her to stay still. Her heartbeat pounds beneath his palm. He stiffens and quietly repeats that she should not move. Both of them flush red. He carefully untangles the chains and steps back, then mentions what he said earlier to Isaac, explaining that it was not spoken at random. Senna asks what he meant, but he looks away, annoyed, and says it does not matter if she does not remember. She freezes. Something flashes through her mind. A realization. Without thinking, she hugs him again and asks him to hold her for a while. He hesitates, pointing out that just moments ago she was trying to get away from him. She tells him to stay like this. He freezes completely. Then, awkwardly, he hugs her back and wonders what brought this on so suddenly. Senna does not answer. She only thinks that she wants this to last a little longer. Light suddenly floods the dungeon. She pulls back abruptly and says she gets it now. The chains around their wrists break. They both stare at each other in stunned disbelief. The cell door unlocks the moment Keith forms a key from magic and slides it into the keyhole. Without hesitation, they step out. Keith signals Senna forward and keeps moving. The corridor stretches ahead, dim and silent. He scans the shadows carefully. There are no guards. It is unlikely that they will get caught, but that is exactly what is strange to him. He shakes the thought away and tells her to stay alert. As they pass one of the cells, a woman suddenly calls out from the darkness, promising a reward if they let her out. They cannot see who it is, but against their better judgment, they stop. Keith opens the door. A woman steps out and immediately stretches like a man who has been cramped for far too long. She laughs in relief, saying she was beginning to worry no one would ever find her. Keith stiffens. He recognizes her at once. It is Yorma. He demands to know how he ended up here. Senna stares between them, then asks flatly whether cross-dressing is some kind of hobby in this country. Keith mutters that it is not. Yorma shrugs and explains that since Keith managed it so easily, he assumed it would be simple. Keith tells him sharply not to do anything unnecessary. Yorma retorts that he cannot help it. The captain had been unbearable, so for his sake, he sneaked in disguised as a maid, claiming the clumsy one could not possibly handle the collar alone. The other maids had stared at him like he had lost his mind. They had asked who he meant by clumsy. And then they had all turned on him. That, apparently, is how he ended up imprisoned. Yorma notices Senna smiling faintly and asks why she looks so pleased. She is not looking at him, she is looking at Keith, pride unmistakable in her expression. She says he is very capable. Yorma smirks knowingly and remarks that the two of them escaped from the bedroom together. Both Senna and Keith stiffen in panic, hurriedly insisting there is a reason for that. Yorma waves it off, claiming he understands. Nightwear is difficult to move in, after all. He declares they should leave everything to him. He has memorized the entire layout of the underground prison storehouse. They both tell him he is not listening. He does not understand at all. After Senna changes into more practical clothing, she moves more freely. She hesitates, asking whether it is really acceptable to use these clothes. Keith replies that they are only borrowing them. Still, he mutters that he would rather have his own weapon. He asks Yorma about the exit. Yorma nods, explaining that accounting for the underground structure, this is the shortest route. They finally emerge from the dungeon. Light floods their vision. Then they freeze. Before them stretches a vast space filled with fire dragons, dozens of them each chained down. It is not only the Dragon King. There are so many. Senna feels her breath catch. Are they all being used as weapons? Yorma points out the residential area beyond, noting they will need a key to open the massive gate ahead. But Senna suddenly grabs Keith's hand and tells him to wait. She steps forward and begins chanting. Pure blinding light erupts from the ground and the magic surges outward, cracking through stone and steel alike. Chains shatter. Doors explode. Everything breaks. She calls out for them to run. But no one moves. Everyone stares at her in stunned disbelief, including the dragons. Senna raises her voice, telling them they are free now. She promises she will free Gideon next. That is when Keith's voice cuts sharply through the tension. He screams at her to look behind her. Figures stand in the shadows. Keith moves instantly, pulling Senna behind him as an arrow slices through the air. It barely misses. A man mutters that he missed. Another laughs, noting that the guard is a woman. The one who appears to be their leader licks his lips slowly and remarks that this place is crawling with gold. They point toward one of the dragons. They have found him. The one-winged brat who escaped. The tracking spell is reacting. The leader orders his men to capture as many as possible. His command ends mid-sentence. In the next instant, his arm separates from his body. It falls to the ground with a dull, heavy thud. The man stares in stunned disbelief, blood spraying as his scream finally tears free. Isaac stands before them. No one noticed when he arrived. He casually asks whether they are poachers. His eyes sharpen as he says he does not intend to let them leave alive. Yorma turns and bolts immediately, shouting that he will fetch the captain. Isaac walks toward the ringleader and asks if he is in charge. The man snarls back that the weak being eaten is the law of nature. The fact that the spirits have not punished him is proof enough. It is strange, he says, that this kingdom hoards everything. Isaac responds coldly, listing freak shows, pets, and the price a flightless dragon would fetch. The man grins in relief, convinced now. He says he knew His Majesty planned to sell them secretly and even offers a profitable route. Isaac tells him to shut up. Then he slashes him open from stomach to chest. The body collapses lifelessly at his feet. Isaac raises his hand and orders his soldiers to attack. He commands them not to spare a single one. Senna watches in shock. The dragon poachers are here. And Isaac is slaughtering them to protect the dragons. She does not understand him at all. Later, she approaches him cautiously and admits as much. He replies that he figured. As he turns away, she calls after him and says she will help him free Gideon's chains. He pauses only briefly, glancing back at her before telling her to do as she wishes. When he starts walking again, she calls out once more. This time, he stops and tells her that he will explain everything. The Emperor of the Fondona Empire tells her to do as she wishes and permits her to free the Fire Dragon King. Senna steps forward, light flashing in her hands as she chants, and glowing light swells around Gideon and the fairies answer her call, the chains shattering into dust. Isaac asks Gideon how he feels. He replies yes, his powers are coming back and he can breathe well now. It doesn't hurt anymore, drawing a quiet sigh of relief from the Emperor, yet Senna remains uneasy. She thought he would run or counterattack. When she calls out that he no longer has to obey, that he is free now, Gideon calmly answers that he knows, but he is staying by Isaac by his own will, the word staggering her as she blurts if he says this as the king of the fire dragons, to which he answers yes before asking Isaac whether he told her about their coexistence and shared prosperity. Isaac admits he did not, and sighing he guesses he should teach this dull-witted caller. Fire dragons have a large population and they all cannot fly. She understands how people survive by the law of the jungle, right? However, the individual who becomes the king as well as the other candidates are a cut stronger than the rest. There is no end to the number of other dragons who got swallowed by lava. Therefore the Fondona Empire decided to lend a hand. In exchange for protecting the injured, young and powerless dragons, the strong dragons will sign a contract and lend their strength to the empire. She realizes with a jolt that this means this place was built in order to create a safe environment for the others. He continues that therefore the fire dragons work as this empire's military force from the city walls and beyond, that includes the volcanic regions where the fire dragons dwell. They have made it so that no other nation nor any foolish poachers can come near them. Keith quietly says that contract seemed one-sided. Isaac bitterly smiles. An emperor who oppresses and subjugates with chains. They must have perceived him as that, didn't they? He has mentioned before that chains are unnecessary. but the chains hanging from Gideon's neck, those are magic device chains that have been handed down from generation to generation as the proof of the contract. It has been there ever since he was born. These past few years, his condition has been deteriorating. He's only 200 years old. He became the king 80 years ago, which is quite a short time, so his thoughts pointed to the chains. But no matter what he did, he had yet to understand why he couldn't break those chains. It was going to take another 100 years until the magic device ran out of power. At that moment, his messenger rushed in and reported that a caller with the power to rule over dragons had appeared. Apparently she used her power against the previous king of the wind dragons. Isaac says calmly that the caller is Senna. He extends his hand toward her, unhurried, and says that is precisely why he wants her. Senna freezes where she stands and slowly asks if he is doing this for Gideon's sake. Beside her, Keith mutters he did for the sake of hegemony. He tried to take the caller for himself. He even threatened invasion, all for his own interest. Isaac smirks, clearly amused, and says he is confident in his ability to offer her a generous, comfortable patronage. Once more, he holds out his arm, casual and certain, saying that even if she is the caller, once she is in his embrace, she will surely fall for him and become his. He tells her it is not too late. If she stays in Fondona, he will give her the finest life she could imagine. Keith looks at him sharply and asks if he has no shame, speaking so lightly as an emperor. Isaac looks bored by the question and replies that there is nothing to be ashamed of. He will give everything to protect the city within these walls as its emperor, and beyond that, nothing matters. Other countries, other lives, even war itself mean little to him. Senna steps closer, drawn despite herself, her gaze fixed on him. She is now sure that the reason why she felt that this empire was forcing dragons to obey them was because she was looking at them from outside. It turns out both humans and dragons are equal. She shuts her eyes and blurts she is very sorry for misunderstanding them. She did not know about their circumstances and took them as a bad person. But since they treat those dragons very well, she's really glad. He watches her with an intense gaze as she smiles so softly and beautifully. He mutters under his breath she is awfully honest. He smiles amused, saying the little girl is starting to look more and more like the sacred collar. She huffs and hears she was apologizing. She snaps she is going to return home. He says he would have let her return immediately if she used her magic from the start. She retorts she just came up with that magic in the dungeons. Keith then asks Isaac has he been experimenting with magic since he doesn't use it often. The night visit, his injury imprisonment and the chain dragons, it seemed to him that he was trying to provoke Senna. He casually says a chain that no magic or weapon could break. If he could amplify the caller's magic using her breath, he thought he might be able to trigger it. He adds in a whisper women are terrifying when getting mad. Keith says that explains why Isaac went out of his way to treat his arm. In the end, he was simply playing the villain. Even so, the injury had truly hurt. Isaac only shrugs and says it was nothing more than removing an obstacle in his path to Senna. A vein throbs at Keith's forehead, and with a thin, sharp smile, Isaac mutters sorry. Through clenched teeth, Keith says he appreciates the honesty. Gideon finally speaks, his voice cutting through the tension. He says that if Isaac had truly eliminated Keith just because he was in the way, they would already be facing a far greater problem. Isaac asks what he means. Gideon answers without hesitation. The one who ignites the caller's magic, the one who amplifies her power, has been by her side from the very beginning. That person is Keith. He is the steerer. Both Senna and Keith stand frozen, shock written plainly across their faces. Seeing their expressions, Gideon asks if they truly did not know. Back when she tried to protect Keith, she succeeded in using Sing for the first time. The second time was the same, and in the dungeon she also came up with a new spell. All those times she has always touched Keith. She steals a glance at him and softly asks was it because he was by her side. She then turns back to the Dragon King and asks if the steerer really exists. Is it not just a coincidence? He points out her amplified power and her forgiving heart is enough for him to tell. Keith smiles when she recalls Rishkai had muttered something like where did the strength behind that chain come from? Now he realizes what he meant. But then he becomes angry, realizing he did not tell them on purpose. Meanwhile, high on a cliff in the Ryudo Mountains, he stands alone, the wind tugging at his hair, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the world stretches endlessly. He whispers to himself that, to be honest, he had wanted to be the steerer but, in the end, it doesn't matter. As long as she is happy, that is enough. Just then, his men come running, breathless, reporting that preparations to rescue the lady are complete. They urge him to appear gallantly and save her. They are certain she would forgive him and fall in love with him. He shakes his head. He doesn't need that anymore. It seems she has overcome the trouble on her own. On the other hand, Senna thanks the Dragon King for telling her about the steerer. However, she just became the caller. She's honestly quite dubious about all this, but she has decided that she wants to know more. So will he tell her about the caller and the dragons? He replies there's nothing much he can tell, this is his first time meeting the caller. He just felt assured around her and he knows she is the caller from her scent. He leans closer and breathes her in, murmuring it never leaves her, this sweet scent. Her lips part in a gasp. But then he pulls back and says even if he's a Dragon King, there's no way he can know her every move. The burning air that chokes him is relieved by a sweet scent. He's guessing the Dragon King of the Wind sensed her presence from the air. She had a nostalgic feeling for Isekaid, who has always longed to meet her. She felt a quiet anger for Gideon, who had been silently coexisting with humans under an unbreakable chain. How could she, a weak human, could possibly use sympathy to reassure the Dragon King? When they have such strong spirits, is it because she is the caller? Yorma freezes as the rain begins to pour. Rain is such a rare sight in Fandona. The sky rumbles above, and Gideon lifts his head, muttering that the troublesome one has arrived. Isaac follows his gaze, his expression unreadable, and remarks that Senna seems to have a guest. Galt stiffens where he stands as a massive dragon emerges from the clouds. He says no, it cannot be. It is the water dragon. Senna's gaze locks onto the dragon, unblinking, as if she cannot look away, raindrops streaking down her face. She knows this feeling. This overwhelming feeling is neither nostalgic nor is it anger. This is an intense surge of feelings that resembles violent waves. The dragon shifts into the form of a beautiful, sorrowful woman, kneeling before Senna with tears glistening in her eyes, pleading with her to end her life. The rain lashes down harder, drenching Senna as she stands frozen, the weight of the dragon's words pressing on her. Kill her. This is no idle threat. The dragon bows her head slightly, she hasn't even introduced herself. She says she is Sharon, the ruler of the water dragons, and asks Senna to pardon her rudeness. Senna blinks, heart tightening. When Sharon says, kill her, she means destroy her. Sharon confirms it, explaining that she can no longer serve her kingdom and that soon she will lose control and run rampant. Senna wants to help, but this is not something she can handle alone. Senna says that she can only use magic on old dragons who have gone mad. From what she can see, Sharon still has enough sense and time to continue her reign as king. But Sharon drops her gaze, tears clinging to her eyelashes and murmurs she cannot let that happen. If she doesn't disappear, that person will also. Keith flinches at her words, and Isaac narrows his eyes, asking if Sharon is referring to the current king of the kingdom of Sepla, King Lambert. Keith told Senna about it during their study. There exists a major nation across the sea from the empire of Fandona. It is where the water dragons live. Senna jerks her head toward her as Sharon suddenly clings to her and pleads that if she does not disappear, she will only bring disaster upon the new king. Senna answers honestly that no matter how much she is asked, she does not know if she can do such a thing. Gideon speaks calmly, asking whether she is truly certain she does not wish to remain by the king's side. Sharon replies that she has always stayed with him, with the one whose eyes never opened, and even now, as they speak, his light is on the verge of fading. She says she has no time left. If Senna will not destroy her, then she will take her leave. As Sharon straightens herself, a sharp pain splits through her head, and she staggers, clutching it as her breath falters. Senna feels her feelings flow into her painfully. She cannot simply leave them alone. Keith moves beside Senna and tells her no matter where she goes, he will always come with her. She smiles softly and then looks back at Sharon and says she cannot do anything for her since she doesn't know about her situation, and even if she comes to know, there's still a chance she won't be able to do anything, but if she needs help, she will come with her. Sharon nurses eagerly and tells her to come. She would destroy her on the spot if she lost her reason to grieve, right? Horrified, Senna says she cannot promise that. But she thinks she cannot simply leave her alone. Just when grief is about to set in, Sharon shifts back into her massive dragon form, scales glinting under the sunlight, and Senna carefully settles onto her back. Sharon declares she will be borrowing the lady caller for a while. Senna tells her she can just call her Senna, and adds that her business in the empire is done, she won't be returning. Isaac calls out her name, acknowledging that he now understands she is the true caller and owes her a debt for freeing Gideon's chains. Senna eyes him warily, muttering that she would hardly ask for help from such a violent man. Isaac warns that the closer she stays to the dragon, the lonelier her path will become, and that is not something easy to bear, but if she ever wants to talk, he will be there. Keith steps forward, every muscle tense, and his gaze locks with Isaac's without a flicker of hesitation as he says there is no need for that because he will be with her. Isaac smirks and mocks. I am relieved to have a good reason to be with her. That is what he looks and sounds like. Senna jumps to his defense and says she also felt relief when she heard that Keith is the steerer. Though she bites her lip, suddenly self-conscious at her own words. Keith turns to his knights, ordering them to report back to Becquerel and then catch up with them. With that, they take their leave. Yorma says it is time for them to move as well. Galt bows deeply before Isaac and says that under these pressing circumstances, they must excuse themselves. Isaac turns to Gideon, asking if they should move as well. Since Senna is headed toward the kingdom of Sepla, they will go in the opposite direction, toward the Republic of Morelli, to erase the humiliation caused by Gideon's chains. Gideon mutters yes, he's also very angry and sorry to Isaac what he had to endure because of his chains. They should investigate the source of that magic device and make everyone involved quiver in fear. Isaac says they should show them who they are messing with. Meanwhile, Senna clings lightly to Sharon's scaled neck, her eyes wide as she drinks in the view from high above. She spots dolphins leaping through the deep blue sea below. She marvels, remarking that she passed over Fondona and the Becquerel Empire in the blink of an eye. The ocean spread below them is indeed calm, but what lies ahead is a dive into the stormy sea. And that concludes the video today. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want another part.